What would you do with complete time, financial, and location freedom? Imagine waking up on a Monday morning fully on your terms. Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? Are your sandy feet kicked back in a hammock while you work from your laptop? Are you filling up your cart at Whole Foods, not checking any of the price tags once? Did you just book a plane ticket to a new country next week just because you can? Reaching this financial, time, and location freedom doesn't have to live only as a daydream. Because for the low price of $10,000 US, you can have all of that, and anyone can succeed in this business. The system we use is 90% automated, so it's literally the easiest entrepreneurial journey on the planet. All you have to do is convince other people to spend $10,000 to join your business, and then teach them how to convince people to spend $10,000 to join their business, which actually is kind of hard because not that many people want to drop $10K on water machines and turmeric supplements. But let me tell you a little secret. It's honestly not even about selling the product. It's about selling the lifestyle, which you don't have yet, but that's okay. You can just fake it till you make it. Trust me, this is going to be the best decision you've ever made. Some of us have only been in this business for like a year and are already making 80K months or $500,000 years. And if we can do it, so can you.
Sounds like a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yes, thank you. You will get rich quick. We all will.
In January of 2020, I received a comment on a video from a member of something called the Breakaway Movement. Now, I'd heard of this group before, as her comment was a response to some of the many people who have asked me to do a video exposing them, but at first I wasn't really sure if I cared all that much about it. But after having a conversation with her, I decided I couldn't not make a video about this. So I spent the past 6 months sleuthing around the internet to try to find as much information as possible, and even joining the Breakaway Movement, so you don't have to. So for anyone who's been looking into this group or knows someone else who has, but you at least want to hear the perspective of someone who will talk about the things the members won't talk about or don't know about, you'll pretty much find everything you need to know here. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to make a more informed decision on whether or not this is something you want to join, or if you have no clue what this group is. Hopefully it'll be entertaining and interesting at the very least. So the Breakaway Movement, which I'll be calling BAM and Breakaway for short, what is it? BAM is an online training platform and community that teaches people how to start their own online businesses through becoming distributors for an MLM or multi-level marketing company called Enagic, which sells water ionizing machines that produce Kangen water. BAM is one of the many training platforms for Enagic and tends to attract mainly young girls who are into new age spirituality and the law of attraction and desire to become entrepreneurs. A lot of them end up moving to Hawaii, and basically all of the higher ups live there or travel full time. At first glance, they seem like a group of loving, compassionate people whose main motivation is to heal the world through Kangen water, but the deeper you dig, the more you start to see that this is just a facade used to recruit unsuspecting people to their exclusive business opportunity. This video is the second of 2 parts of a deep dive into Kangen water and BAM, so check out my first video titled Is Kangen Water a Scam? For information that is more focused on the product they promote, the claims made about it, the actual science behind it, a more in-depth look at the MLM aspect, as well as a lot of other background context for this video that's good to be aware of before watching. Since I know not everyone's gonna watch it though, let's start out with a quick recap. Enagic is a Japanese company that has been around for over 45 years and is a leading water ionizer brand. Enagic sells 7 water ionizing machines ranging in price from $1,980 to $5,980 US. These are thousands more than other popular brands, but they say that's because they're the highest quality, which I've found no evidence for. The most popular model in Breakaway is the K8, probably because it's the only aesthetic one, which is $4,980. The K8 produces 7 different pH levels of water ranging from about 2.5, which is acidic, to 11, which is alkaline. The acidic 2.5 pH is promoted as being more effective than regular water for removing pesticides off food, as well as being a useful cleaner and disinfectant. The 6.0 is referred to as beauty water and can be used externally on the skin and hair, whereas the more alkaline pHs are used for drinking, and these are just a few of the dozens of proclaimed ways to use the water. Proponents of ionizers say that the water they produce undergoes an electrical change through the process of electrolysis, creating alkalized water. There are also bottled water companies that sell alkaline water, but that is different from water made through ionizers, as that water goes through a chemical change, usually by adding a substance like baking soda. So bottled alkaline water and alkalized water made through ionizers are not the same thing. Kangen machines are also not just really overpriced water filters. In fact, it's only listed that they filter out chlorine. Instead, the other main selling point of water ionizers, besides their ability to change pH, is that they create electrolyzed reduced water and hydrogen-rich water. People claim that this makes the water high in antioxidants, and Enagic states that because of this, it can reduce free radicals and therefore suppress oxidative stress, which is generally why Kangen water is often promoted as a cure-all. This list on the screen shows just some of the proclaimed benefits of Kangen water, according to those who drink it. Enagic themselves only say that its benefits are the minerals it contains and the optimal hydration it offers. Why is that? Well, there just simply isn't enough evidence to back up all these claims the distributors make, so if Enagic went around saying the water cures cancer or prevents the CV, they would be sued. But like I said, Enagic is an MLM, so the people who are promoting and advertising the water, the distributors, are independent contractors for the company, and therefore Enagic is not responsible for anything they say. They usually have to resort to sharing personal testimonies and making health and medical claims without ever providing a source, because there just isn't good evidence that drinking the water is beneficial for anything except alleviating gastrointestinal symptoms. Now, if you've ever followed any Breakaway member, or if you are a member of BAM yourself, you're probably thinking, hold up. Enagic is not an MLM. It's direct selling, it's network marketing. This is what just about every single Kangen salesperson in Breakaway that I've ever seen will say. According to the US Federal Trade Commission though, a company is an MLM if salespeople who are not employees of the company but are rather usually treated like independent contractors distribute a company's products or services for them, and can also recruit other people to become distributors for the company as well. They are right about it being network marketing and direct sales, but network marketing is a synonym for MLM, and every MLM is part of direct sales. There are two types of direct selling. The first is single level, and in that you are selling a company's products, but you have no option to recruit. In multi-level direct sales, you are still selling a company's products, but you do have the option to recruit. That's all the criteria that's needed. Enagic pays distributors commission based on rank and how many products are sold directly by them or by the people they have recruited under them, called their downline, thereby making it an MLM. In Enagic, there are 6 basic compensation levels and then extra stuff after that. The basic ranks are 1A through 6A. You start out at 1A, and then once you've made 3 sales, you rank up to 2A, 11 sales gets you to 3A, 21 to 4A, 51 to 5A, and then 101 gets you to 6A. Your direct sales, aka you selling directly to someone, and your indirect sales, aka someone in your downline making sales, both count as your sales. So if you make 1 sale and the person you sold to makes 2 sales, you do have 3 sales. In order to rank up, however, you must make a direct sale. So if you sold to someone who made 2 sales, you do have 3 sales, but you won't rank up to 2A until you make your next direct sale. You also do not make money on everyone in your downline. Enagic has something called the 8-point system. Each rank represents how many points you get per sale. If you're 2A, you get 2 points per sale. If you're 6A, you get 6 points per sale. A point is basically equal to the 1A commission for a given product, so as we can see here with the K8, at rank 1A you get 1 point or $340 per sale. At 2A you receive 2 points, so that's 340 times 2, so $680. In total, only 8 points are given out, so if you're 2A and you make a sale, you'll receive 2 of those 8 points. If your direct upline is 5A, you will get 5 points, leaving only 1 point left over for their direct upline, and that's all the commission that is paid out for that sale. Since those are the only 3 that received commission, those are the only people where that will count as a sale for them. Once you get to 6A, you cannot continue to rank up unless you have recruited people who are also doing the business, because from then on, you can only rank up by getting people under you to rank up. After 6A, the next rank is 6A2. To achieve that rank, you must have 2 people in your downline who are 6A. to hit the next rank, 6A2-2, you must have 2 people who are 6A2, and that goes on and on. 6A2-3, 6A2-4, 6A2-5, etc. are all achieved by having 2 people in your downline that are the rank directly below it. There are also bonuses that you can receive if you make enough sales in the qualifying month once you hit 6A and any of the ranks above it, and once you hit 6A2-3, you get monthly residual income for the rest of your life, which can be passed down to your kid once you die, and that amount of money increases the higher the rank you are. Anyways, many multi-level marketing companies try to avoid the negative connotation associated with MLM by using terms like direct selling and network marketing. People don't like MLMs for so many reasons, from the cold messaging to the way it ruins a lot of relationships to the fact that many people believe that all MLMs are pyramid schemes, which are illegal. Based on my research, that's not true, but defining a pyramid scheme then prosecuting a company as one are both very complex things, so I think a lot of people end up not really understanding what a pyramid scheme is. Long story short, not all MLMs are pyramid schemes. There have been MLMs that were taken to court and not determined to be a pyramid scheme, so there's no way to know if Enagic is one unless they're taken to court. Based on my research of the company's compensation plan and MLMs and pyramid schemes, I would guess that they're probably not one. But one of the oddest things about this being multi-level marketing is that Enagic is probably one of the only MLMs that sells a medical device. Kangen machines are classified as medical devices in Japan, and they have that classification either for disinfectant purposes and or because they've been shown to help alleviate gastrointestinal symptoms. I find it very interesting that a company would want to make it possible for any random person with no qualifications to be able to inform about and sell a medical device and then have that be their main form of advertisement. But Breakaway members are convinced that Enagic just cares about its customers so much and they want to make them richer instead of selling to big corporations and therefore making them richer. This is BS in my opinion. According to the FTC, 99.6% of people lose money in MLMs. 99.6% will never make a single penny, and of those who do, most of them aren't making that much. When you look at the Breakaway movement though, it doesn't seem like that. These girls share how much money they make all the time, even though it's against Enagic policies and FTC guidelines to do so. They don't really care. And I know many people don't believe MLMers when they talk about how much money they make because many do lie. But based on how completely and utterly out of touch with reality the higher-ups of BAM are, I'm pretty sure they're telling the truth. They talk about making $500,000 in their first year, or being able to start traveling the world within 2 months of joining. Many Breakaway members litter their social media platforms with misleading claims in order to entice their followers so they can make more money off them. We'll get into that a little later. First, let's look at how this whole movement got started after we make a few quick disclaimers because I've seen many Enagic distributors try to silence people or take down their content because they didn't agree with it, or threaten legal action for talking about them. This video is just my opinion. Everything in this video falls under fair use. Even when I'm showing things from the private Facebook group or talking about things in the community calls, I can do that for commentary and review purposes. I'm not implying that statements made by Enagic distributors or BAM members shown in this video are necessarily representative of Enagic's position or BAM's position on any subject. No statements that I make about individual BAM members or like the higher-ups in BAM are statements about the Breakaway movement as a company, just certain anonymous people because everyone will be getting fake names. This video is not meant as hate towards anyone who's a member of BAM or any other trading platforms, but go ahead and dislike bomb the video like you guys do with every other one that's been critical of your groups because it really does show maturity. So our story begins about 6 years ago on the dating app Tinder when a 20-something-year-old girl who we'll call Aaliyah went on a date with a guy who told her he sold magic water. She must have been intrigued because a couple weeks later, she bought one of these machines he had told her about, and thus began the future founder of the Breakaway movement's journey as a Kangen water distributor. The beginning wasn't easy for her. Although she had already been a health coach for 3 years at the time and likely had many connections through that, she didn't really feel comfortable talking about her new business at first. Because of that, it took her 2 months to make her first sale, which was to her mom, and another 2 to 3 months after that to make her second sale. Eventually, she joined something called Kangen Kingdom, which was just a Facebook group that consisted mostly of guys who were living that flex lifestyle, buying Yeezys, posting pictures in front of helicopters, all that stuff. She didn't seem to like those vibes, although she's never been shy about her desire to be wealthy and live an extravagant life. Aaliyah grew up in a touristy town in New York where a lot of celebs had summer homes, and she says, I was just really exposed to this lavish lifestyle that people lived, and although it wasn't something I had access to or exposure to in my own home, it was definitely something I knew was like totally possible and achievable, and it's just something I've been really passionate about, just living a really good life and creating an amazing, comfortable, lavish life for myself. So at some point, Aaliyah decided to leave Kangen Kingdom. She says, I really knew that I had more to offer than what I was able to share and create with this first team I was working with. So in 2018, I think, she joined a new platform called the CEO Movement, founded by a guy called Bob, brother of controversial YouTuber Elise Parker. Aaliyah has said that she was a pretty big part of CEO. She was friends with Bob's mom, who was also part of the group, and even spoke on stage for one of CEO's events in London. But soon enough, Aaliyah started to have problems with some of the ways Bob was running things, as many others before and after her have as well. I believe she said that some of the business practices being employed were unethical in her opinion, so in around January 2019, she would start her own platform and go on to call it the Kangen Movement. When the platform was still very small, she hired Richard as a web developer. You may know him and his ex-girlfriend, who's a mod for the BAM Facebook group, from this.
You were buying celery.
You were buying rosé?
Leah also tried to get the boys from CEO to help her create the website for Kangen Movement, but apparently they were too busy. She seems to wish that she had done things differently and more on her own, but instead I stayed and I tried to get them to help, and they wanted to help in some ways, and I tried to manipulate them in others. Not sure what that means or why she would admit to that, but okay. They apparently didn't like that though, as she has made it seem like they tried to sabotage her platform, which made her have to rebrand the Kangen Movement to the Breakaway Movement. That brings us to about mid-2019. It was kind of hard to find like all the dates and stuff for when BAM was created, but I did receive an email from them where they said that August 19th, 2020 was their 1-year anniversary, although I believe the movement had been in the works for a while before that. When they first started, they had 350 members that must have came over from CEO with Aaliyah, and as of August 11th, 2020, there are 3,966 Breakaway Movement members. Since it's only a year old, compared to the other Enagic training platforms that I've come across, there really hasn't been that much negative press, although I suspect that will change over the next few years. All the other platforms I've come across have been accused of being scams. There will be a ton of ex-members coming out and talking about how no one's making money or whatever, and in general, the reputation only seems to decline as time goes on, and they end up rebranding to circumvent that negative press. Something I have to commend Aaliyah and BAM for is their transparency that they promote and sell Kangen water. It could be a little better because it seems that there are some people who are confused about what they do, but it's really not that hard to figure it out. A lot of the people in Breakaway will put like Enagic distributor in their Instagram bios, but the majority of other training platforms are very secretive about their affiliation. They will tell their members not to talk about the water, just talk about the business until people sign up for the platform, which has made it extremely hard for me to compile a list of these groups and their different connections and which ones started from each other. Despite that, I scoured the depths of the internet to make a graphic of all the Enagic training platforms in English-speaking countries that I could find, and I want to go over these really quickly because I think it's an interesting part of the story. I'll have a more detailed blog post on these below because I don't want this to take up too much time, and you can of course skip it if you want, but here is my graphic. The furthest back I could find was a group called Project AWOL, founded in 2012 or 2013. In 2015, they rebranded to AWOL Academy, and again to Full Stock Marketer in 2019. I don't think they promote Enagic anymore. I couldn't find any evidence that they do, at least, and I think even before that they didn't solely promote Enagic, which is common for a lot of these platforms. They are often advertised as social media training platforms, and some of them focus primarily on Enagic. You're not going to really find them talking about any other companies, but some talk about many different, often network marketing or affiliate marketing opportunities. A few members of AWOL eventually went on to create their own training platforms for Enagic. One created Global Prosperity Movement in 2013, which was rebranded to the Diamond Life earlier this year. The person who created this is also a co-founder of the Freedom Era, created in 2020. There are also 2 other co-founders who seem to be the main people in charge of that though, and the 2 of them also hold an annual event called Freedom Fest. 2 other guys who are in AWOL created Global Affiliate Zone, or GAZ, in 2016, rebranded to Affiliate Institute in 2019. While the co-founders seem to be pretty good at making sales, 86% of the members of their platform weren't able to even get a single person to sign up to GAZ in 2017. And this group did not encourage people to talk about the water, so we could assume that less ever made an Enagic sale in that year. And I wouldn't be surprised if other groups have similar statistics. A guy founded Team Phoenix Marketing in 2016 after meeting one of the founders of GAZ. It was rebranded in 2018 to the ACE Initiative. Nowadays, he has 2 new websites, Online Biz Masterclass and Online Business Mentorship, which both have different web classes and intro videos, but all connect back to him and ACE and Enagic. In 2019, Digital Genius Lab, founded in 2016, merged into ACE. The creators of the Genius Lab now run Sales Ascenders. Don't know if that focuses on Enagic at all though. Someone else who started in GAZ was Bob. His first platform was called Project Q1, which he started in 2016, then rebranded it to the CEO movement in 2018. In March of this year, a group of about 300 to 400 people who were in CEO decided to leave and start Digital Prosperity Movement. So then of course we have Kangen Movement, rebranded to Breakaway Movement, which started from Aaliyah being in CEO. From BAM, many of the higher-ups have created their own platforms, some because of disagreements in business practices, and others likely saw more money in creating their own platform or wanted to be at the top of their own pyramid instead of just being near the top of someone else's. The Free Life movement is one that has a more entrepreneurial vibe. This one was created by Macy and her fiance. We have Conscious Creators Ohana, created by Ellie and Anne, and this one has more of a anti-vax type of stay-at-home mom vibe. We have Wake Water Co., created by Julie, which focuses a lot on the water and has a very, very pseudoscience woo-woo vibe.
As we activate our aura, this is the 4th phase of water, and our aura expands as we invite in a higher frequency and hold that frequency. Our waters within our DNA structure and our auras expand to the cosmos. And we merge with the circumpolar rainbow bridge of the Earth's aura. Once we do that, we are healing our bubble because we live in the realm of air, of oxidation, of the aging process. This is water abundance.
And Know Your Why was created by Tara, which has a pretty similar vibe to BAM. We'll talk about the reasons some of these people decided to leave BAM at the end of the video. Moving on to the next section, created in 2016, we have Darren and Mike. Founders also have platforms called Wealth Achieved, previously called Workshop Replay, It's My Time Today, Achieve Freedom Today, and they used to have one called Better Life Buzz. These are all basically 5 roads that lead to the same place. The Dream Team, I think, is what they call like their groups or their members. So BAM is definitely not the first group to ever take advantage of Enagic's compensation plan by creating a training platform that'll teach you how to create an abundant income online, but it's the one we're going to talk about today. When you first come across Breakaway Movement, it'll likely be through a girl in her 20s who has a very aesthetic Instagram account who says she makes $15K a month and only works 5 hours a week. She'll probably talk about how she quit her 9-to-5 last year and within months was able to travel the world, all because of her online business. Most people might hear this and think there's probably more to the story not being told, because if something sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. If you're unhappy with your life though, maybe you hate your job or wish you had more time to do what you love or have no clue what you want to do in life, these stories about having complete time, location, and financial freedom will sound very appealing. So maybe you'll DM her and say you're interested or you want more information, and she'll probably send you back a voice memo because that's what they're told to do since it makes it more personal, and it'll probably start out with her saying, "Hi love." I cold messaged a couple dozen of them for this video, and basically all of the higher ups say that in that exact way. Anyways, you might go on to have a conversation. Eventually she'll send you a link to a web class. You'll go there, you'll type in your name and your email, and you watch it. The web class has changed from when I first watched it back in February. It used to be Aaliyah and Macy, but now it's a 10-minute video of Zoe and Molly. They start out by sharing their stories and how Breakaways changed their lives and how they make a lot of money now, how selling high-ticket items like Kangen machines is where you want to be, list all the things that a band membership includes, which I'll go over in a bit. There really isn't anything I want to talk about from this video because they don't really say that much. It's kind of just like emotional appeals to get people to sign up. But the one thing I do want to mention is that they say the system they use is 90% automated. This is something that all the Enagic training platforms say. It's not like the Breakaway Movement has done any sort of calculations to figure out how much of the work their platform does for you. It's just said to make it seem like you don't really have to do that much work and it's really easy. The video I do want to talk about though is their business compensation plan video, which is a 22-minute voiceover from Aaliyah, and on the Breakaway Vimeo page, it says it has over 74,000 views, so a lot of people are watching this. I believe many members will embed it on their personal websites, and there's quite a bit of misinformation in this video, which is why I want to go over it. So she starts by talking about the freedoms this business can bring and how it's changed lives, you know, kind of just like emotional appeals. But then she does go right into talking about Enagic, which is great, and giving a background on them. She lists things like their A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, which they no longer have. It was at a C+ when I filmed this video, and by the time I'm editing it, it's already down to a D. She also says,
because Enagic is a part of the Direct Sales Association and has their own patented compensation plan, this is not a multi-level marketing opportunity.
I'm gonna try not to get worked up in this video because there is a lot of stuff that makes me mad, but it's quite disappointing to me that even the founder of Breakaway can't take the time to truly educate herself on what an MLM is, especially because Enagic themselves have even acknowledged that they're an MLM in their policies and procedures, which all the distributors are supposed to read before becoming a distributor. Like, I swear if the CEO, Mr. Oshiro, called them up and was like, hey, Enagic is an MLM, okay? They still wouldn't believe it's one. It's crazy. Being a member of the DSA means nothing. Again, all MLMs are direct selling. Avocare was a member of the DSA, and that was not only an MLM, but it was determined in court to be a pyramid scheme. And having a patent for the comp plan only means that someone else can't copy it. It does not mean it's so unique that Enagic can't be an MLM. A company is an MLM if salespeople receive commission for their sales and also have the ability to recruit other people into the business, creating multiple levels of distributors, hence multi-level marketing. That's it. I tried to explain this to a BAM girl who made IGTV videos on why Enagic is not an MLM. You can read all the messages here if you want, but basically she couldn't defend herself, so she ignored me, and then when I got her to respond, she told me she felt attacked and eventually blocked me. These people really don't want it to be an MLM, but they don't know anything about MLMs. They just have like preconceived beliefs about what an MLM is or what a pyramid scheme is or whatever, and they use that to make just say random stuff, and they don't really know what they're talking about ever. In the web class, Aaliyah also says Enagic has received
multiple ISO awards.
They're not awards, they're certifications that don't really mean that much in my opinion. I went over all of them in my Kangen water video, so you can find a timestamp to that specifically in the description of that video if you want to check it out. She says, in Enagic there are no sign-up fees, yet you have to spend thousands of dollars on a machine to join, so that's not a sign-up fee, it is a fee what you pay when you sign up to be a distributor. She says there are no monthly qualifications, but all the 6A and above bonuses require monthly qualifications of 10 direct sales in the qualifying month. And if you don't make a direct sale for 3 months, you will start making less money on indirect sales. If you don't make one for 6 months, you'll make half the commission you would on indirect sales. And if you don't make one for 2 years, you make nothing on indirect sales until you make a direct sale again. She says you don't have to stock up on any products, which is true and definitely a good thing. She says there's no auto ship or subscription fees, yet if you get something they call the Trifecta, that's not true. The Trifecta is something that BAM members really push, okay? And it costs $8,630, but with all the added things like taxes and shipping and handling, comes out to about $10,000. Easily one of the most expensive MLM buy-ins out there. The Trifecta consists of purchasing a K8 for $4,980 and a NASPA, which is a mineral water ion spa system that costs $2,890, and a 4-month supply of Ukon turmeric supplements for $760. When you have a Trifecta, you start with 2A commission because you sold yourself 2 of the products from the first one, meaning you have 3 distributor accounts. Then when you sell products, you make money on the 2 accounts above it each time. And when you sell a Trifecta to someone, that counts as 3 sales for each of your accounts above it, so it would only take 33 sales to hit 6A if you're only selling Trifectas. They try to make it sound like that's super easy because everyone can make 33 connections, but I think by the end of the video, you'll definitely see that that's not true. There's also something called the Quad or the Quadzilla, which is a Trifecta plus a second K8, which they usually connect to a bathroom sink. Anyways, the main reason they promote buying the turmeric supplements is because they auto-ship 3 times a year. Then she also says there's no annual renewals, which is true, and that there's no deranking, which is also kind of true, but at the same time, Aaliyah had a 5A account in Kangen Kingdom, but then she had to get rid of that and start from scratch when she wanted to join CEO movement. So if you start in one training platform and then you don't like it and you want to move to a new training platform, most of them don't let you in if you're not in their downline. She says there's no licensing required, which is true for all MLMs, I'm pretty sure, but at the same time, many of the higher-ups have licensed their businesses. Then she goes on to say that the majority of people will own a Kangen machine one day, and it's the next kitchen appliance, even though the very next thing she says is that only 0.1% of people know about Kangen water. Enagic has existed for almost half a century and only 0.1% of people even know about it, but pretty soon everyone's gonna have a Kangen machine in their kitchen. Not just any water ionizer though, we're all gonna own one from the same exact company. But another thing I like to say is that 1 in 5 Japanese households owns a machine, a Kangen machine. So 0.1% of the world population is 7.8 million. 1/5 of Japanese households is about 9.8 million, and the average household size is 2.5 as of 2005. So if that 1 in 5 statement is true, we could estimate that 24.5 million people in Japan alone live in a house with a Kangen machine, which is way more than that 0.1% that even know about it. So one of those statistics is wrong. I'm gonna guess it's the 1 in 5 one, because I found a comment from a guy who has lived in Japan for over 30 years and has never known a single person who's owned one. Next, Aaliyah says that over 70% of the human body is made of water. I've heard this stat from members so many times it makes me want to cry. Even Enagic has said this. Yet this government says it's 60% in adults, so does Mayo Clinic. I've not found a single website that said it's 70%, yet these people all use the same statistic. I get the impression that many of them unconsciously regurgitate whatever they hear without doing any research outside of the Enagic website and their upline. Then she goes back to saying,
This is not a multi-level marketing company. It's not one of those MLM gigs where you sell 5 products to one of your friends who sells 5 products to their friends, and so on and so forth. Enagic is a true direct sales business. And it's a lot like real estate, honestly, because commission in Enagic is earned over and down rather than from top to bottom.
She goes on to show this example, which, gosh, it's just so funny how she had to lay this out to make it fit the narrative. Let me draw this exact same thing for you, except for with the lines a little more organized in a way that makes sense. Okay, here we go. So you sell to Claire and Allie. Claire sells to 5 more people. You make money on your direct sales and your indirect sales. That is the definition of multi-level marketing, okay? It doesn't matter if you make it a rectangle or draw a squiggly line over here. At the end of the day, it's still an MLM, and it still has a triangle shape. It is an MLM gig where you sell products to people who sell products to people, and so on. Like, what else would you be doing? Where is it going over? What does it mean for it to go over? Over where? I have no clue. If one person is this entire line that she's making, you can just draw it into a point, creating that triangle shape that she tried so hard to act like it's not. Anyways, she kind of continues explaining the comp plan and concludes with like a recap of how amazing the business is. But most people who watch that aren't going to be able to pick out all the misinformation because the emotional appeals are going to capture their attention the most, and probably none of them have done 6 months of research on Enagic, the comp plan, Breakaway, MLMs like I have. And these girls rarely encourage you to do your own research. In fact, one of the top dogs, Karen, has said, so many people talk to their parents or their family members, or they seek out extra guidance. Oh, I'm gonna do some research into this and like talk to my parents about it. I'm like, okay, pieces, that's it, game over. Another top dog, Clarice, was happy when some girl told her, it took me 5 minutes to decide I wanted to be all about this company, so I went for it and invested in a trifecta. And so generally, the people whose judgment is clouded by desperation are the ones who are most vulnerable and therefore the most likely to sign up for Breakaway. One girl has said that she signed up for BAM because she saw one of the higher up Brins travels and wanted her life. She has also said that she feels like many came across BAM at a really low point in their life. And that seems to be the theme with a lot of the ex-BAM members who have messaged me and told me about their stories. A lot of the people joining are girls in their late teens or early 20s, which is kind of like the age and gender where people are most naive and not as likely as a guy or an older adult to think about their decision as critically. Especially since BAM has a very new age spirituality vibe, it attracts people who act on emotion rather than logic. I want to make it clear that if you're in BAM and you're at the bottom and you're struggling, my frustration and disgust with things taking place in this group is not at all directed at you, it's just the higher ups. Anyways, I do think for others, greed plays a huge role. Macy, for example, has said, I had this desire to create my own empire, to have an above average income, to buy a fancy car, to buy a fancy house, to be celebrated and congratulated. Someone else told me that one of the reasons they joined BAM was to make an F ton of money. One of the higher ups, Reba, had never tried the water before investing and just saw Leah post about it on Instagram and said, it was always something I kind of wanted to invest in, but I was like, I'm not gonna pay $5,000 for a machine. But then I was like, okay, there's a business plan attached, that's pretty damn dope. Someone told me about a story that was posted on Instagram by one of the higher ups, Zoe, who's friends with Aaliyah. Keep in mind that this is just hearsay and it's not exact wording, but this is how the girl described what Zoe said. She posted on her story a few weeks ago, her talking to her friend about how they're gonna buy an island somewhere. They're gonna buy Aaliyah's island. They're all gonna live there. I'm guessing meaning like the higher ups, the top dogs of BAM. There's kind of like this in-group that you'll kind of start to see who's in it as the video goes on. I'm guessing that's who she's referring to. They're gonna have servants who bring them coconuts and wash their surfboards and do everything for them. They're gonna have like a cafe or a restaurant that's just gonna be constantly making them food. They're gonna have self-sustaining properties and all this stuff. Luckily, they'll be able to use Aaliyah's yacht as transportation to and from the island, since Aaliyah said she was going to gift herself a catamaran yacht when she hit 682-3, which she said she did back in fall of 2019, but Enagic puts out these newsletters that list every single person in the company who's hit 6A or any rank above 6A, and I've looked through all of them multiple times and I never saw her hitting that rank in any of them. So maybe she changed her business name or she's lying. I don't know. Leah's very into yachts though. In the OG web class that I watched, she said, I was literally sailing on a catamaran yacht about an hour before filming this video with 65 of my business partners. She's also said that a yacht for the summer off Saint Tropez is high vibrational. She pronounces Saint-Tropez like Saint Tropez, which makes me kind of think maybe she's not as high class as she kind of wants people to think. So BAM costs $33.33 a month because angel numbers, and in it you get access to pre-recorded videos regarding Enagic products, money mindset, how to talk to people, personal development, social media training, etc. Some people do just sign up to Breakaway for like the social media training, but it's really basic stuff like try to make your Instagram feed aesthetic or post about things you're passionate about, like stuff you can just, it's common sense or stuff you can find for free. But in the original web class that I watched, either Aaliyah or Macy actually says, we're gonna teach you how to grow your social media accounts successfully because you're learning from some of the best, most influential people on social media in the world. Really? So of all the BAM members that are like active in the community, Aaliyah's the one with the most followers. Currently she has around 74,000, but as you can see from her social blade stats, she's been losing followers for at least a year and a half. Macy isn't really active in BAM since she has her own platform now, but we are going to talk about the ex-higher-ups who have just moved to new platforms in this video. So she's only gained about 2,500 followers in the past year, putting her around 16,500 today. The higher-ups who started with more followers, like the 20 to 40,000 range, have all been steadily losing followers. Almost all the other higher-ups that I know of have less than 20,000 aren't growing that much or have been pretty stagnant for months. So I can't figure out which of these people are the best, most influential people on social media in the world. They aren't really bringing on that many non-BAM members in their training videos or their community calls that I know of. Anyway, some of their training videos are pretty professionally done, but others are just like Richard doing one-shot takes where he's saying and like a ton while explaining how to screen record. You get access to their events and retreats, I spoke to a girl who knew someone who went to, I think, their Maui experience retreat in 2019, and she told me, I had a friend who went and it was very segregated. Like, they had the VIP people who had the nicer rooms, and they had a big family dinner that only 20 of them were a part of, and they were like the elite group and everyone else was like peasants. There's a BAM community Google Doc folder with info on the science, doctor opinions, presentations, etc. You get access to the private Facebook group, which was mainly just people welcoming newcomers to the group and starting engagement challenges or like campaigns, or basically the same questions being asked over and over and over again. A recent addition is one-on-one business coaching with people who have hit 6A and above. There's weekly live mastermind calls, which is usually just one of the higher ups coming on and sharing their story and talking about how to use law of attraction or how to make your first sale and get started with your business. Nothing that I'd consider a mastermind, but these are all targeted at people who are new to Breakaway, and most have not invested in Enagic yet, because once you do affiliate with Enagic, then you get access to BAM Pro, which doesn't cost extra, but you can access more things on the website. You also are added into a secret BAM Pro Facebook group, and you get an extra mastermind call a week. I definitely wasn't in that, so my opinions are just based on the information that I found from like the regular BAM calls and trainings and Facebook group. But I do have some notes that a girl took from one of the BAM Pro masterminds led by Zoe, and boy are they interesting. I'm gonna skip a few for time purposes, but I'm never trying to misrepresent what anyone's saying, so the full info is always on the screen if you want to see all that stuff. So here we go. Zoe reached 6A without doing ads or responding to messages or anything. Everything worked out for her. If you don't think life is easy, you're doing it wrong. Stop putting emphasis on actions and start putting emphasis on feeling. Everything we desire is because it will make us feel good when we have it, so embody that now and it will come. It is law. Allie and Zoe both made 20K in 1 month without doing any work. Dance parties, reading, meditation, Trifecta vortex, focusing on feeling good, what it would feel like to hit 6A. You are not in debt. You invested in something that is going to give you life and earn you money back. It is spending your money in a smart way. Chill the F out. Stop caring so much and stop wondering when it's gonna come. As long as you work on yourself and your business, it's going to happen eventually, so why does it matter when it's gonna happen? The only way to fail at this business is if you quit. That's something they all say and something people in all MLMs say. Trust, 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 trust. Smile, trust, trust. Have faith, have fun. Trust, trust. Affirm, trust, trust, trust. Quote from Zoe, I assume. My business became most successful when I stopped trying to convince people into things. I do not give a crap about convincing anybody. If I send you 6 links and you watch all and are not interested, then I don't want to talk to you. You either get it or you don't. For coaching calls, answer the questions, then ask if they're getting a trifecta. If you aren't on the vibe, then I don't want you on my team. I need you to be here and show up and get it. She ignores people who ask about pyramid schemes, lol, not worth the time. Do not convince people. Talk about my experience and why I like it. Don't word vomit. Say to leads, I've been on vacation since I first started Enagic. I've been traveling full-time since I first started. This is my experience. Take it or leave it. No attachments, sale, or person, or commission. Commission is reward for sharing beautiful machines. People know what is right for them. Just so you know, BAM and Enagic isn't going anywhere. If it feels right in the future, just send me a message. No follow-up, and they will come back. If you're passionate, then others will feel your passion and want to join. If you're a skeptic, you will attract skeptics. Zoe has people tell her they'll get a trifecta in the next 5 minutes because they don't have skepticism or lack money mindset, because she doesn't. This is the easiest journey of entrepreneurship on the planet. Easiest effing business on the planet. Listen to Abraham Hicks for an hour and the job is done for the day. Vibes are high. Feeling good is more important than anything. Zoe doesn't have conversations. She just sends links and says, if I were you, I would just pay the $33 to go through the questionnaire, watch the videos, join the Facebook group, and join a team call. And if you don't resonate after that, then I'll personally send you your $33 back. If someone is hesitant to pay $33, they won't invest in a trifecta. Don't waste time. So I guess that's the kind of information being shared in the pro group. After signing up, you're supposed to take this questionnaire so your upline person can get to know you better and I think determine whether or not you'll be a waste of time. Some of the higher ups give out type form questionnaires earlier on in the sales pitch to really weed out the duds. One of them talked about a question she puts in the form and says, I think I put like, what self-development tactics do you use every day? and a lot of them don't put anything. And I'm like, okay, this is not gonna work because I'm gonna have to start from square one with you, like teaching a baby how to walk. If you're not as incompetent as a baby though, after that you can schedule your like one-on-one coaching session with your mentor. In it, they'll just explain things and ask questions and probably ask if you're getting a trifecta to make sure you're on the vibe. What happens if you can't afford a trifecta or even a K8? Well, don't worry. People with no money or those who are already in debt are the types of people they target. One of the higher-ups, Reba, who was 5'8" at the time of the screenshot and therefore had 50 to 100 sales, has said that she only had 2 people on her entire team that could pay out of pocket. So they usually encourage people to take out loans or use credit cards to finance these machines. In a video that people from the US are supposed to receive a link to after having their coaching call, Aaliyah's sister Sharon talks about financing options. And regarding getting approved for a credit card, she says,
so the first thing is credit cards have no way of actually checking your income. So I always tell people, go ahead and manifest $90,000 coming your way this year and put that down as your salary.
Falsifying financial information when trying to get approved for a credit card is called loan application fraud. She's literally telling people to commit fraud so they can join this business. And I spoke to somebody who told me that one of the other higher ups, Karen, also told her to falsify information to get approved for a credit card. Interesting business technique. But what comes next after being advised to break the law? Once you fill out all your forms, go into debt for the business opportunity, and receive your items, then you're finally a distributor and get to work towards making that first sale. This one girl says that many Breakaway members never earn less than $1,130 a month upon starting the business, which is one trifecta sale. Based on my research though, unless you have prior experience in MLMs or building online businesses, or you already have a large following or just naturally a really good salesperson, that is so not true.
I do feel like a lot of the people who you find that really do well with MLMs, it's not their first MLM. It's not their first rodeo. They've been doing it for a very long time. And they usually are dragging kind of people with them from thing to thing. And that's how they build up their network, is like being like, hey, you guys who were with me at that like MLM over there, that failed MLM, come over here, come over here, come over here.
Even when you look at the top dogs of the movement, the ones that are making way more than everyone else, people like Iris, Nina, and Alyssa have said it took them over a month to make their first sale. Brianna and another have said it took them over 2 months. And those are the higher ups. The average person isn't going to do as well as them. For example, this woman posted in the Facebook group that she's been in the business for 7 months and fingers crossed she's close to making her first sale. According to Alyssa, there are many people in this community that it takes maybe even a year to make their first sale. So what is it? Many people make their first sale in a month, or many people take over a year to make their first sale? But anyways, in the beginning it seems like people focus more on trying to make sales, and then the higher up you get, the more you try to focus more on being a coach or a mentor to help the noobs make sales so you don't have to put in as much work. In MLMs, it generally is the people at the bottom doing all the work and the very few people at the top making all the money. I mean, in Enagic, if you're 1A and your direct upline is 6A, when you make a K8 sale, you only make $340. Your upline makes $2,040 off your sale. You're the one that did the work. They're the one that made all the money. But to many, that won't matter because they've been convinced that they'll hit 6A easily, and then they'll be making all the money from other people doing all the work, though I doubt they really think of it like that. I doubt many of them really question the business structure at all. They just see it as this amazing business opportunity and are blinded to the fact that it could be anything less than perfect. So now that I spent way too long on the basics of the Breakaway movement, let's get into the really interesting part of the video, which is their sales tactics. Starting with a few of my favorites. Illusions of exclusivity. In the BAM social media training video, Aaliyah says, "We really want to give off the image of exclusivity." In one of the masterminds, Zoe says, "Another thing that really works is making it seem to people that this is a really exclusive opportunity that not everyone gets. If you make it seem more exclusive, people love exclusivity and it makes them want it more because they're more curious." Some of them will also post on their stories about how they're opening a limited amount of spots to be mentored by them this month. "I'm here to offer my mentorship to 4 people only. These spots will fill up within the next 48 hours, probably sooner. I trust if you hear the calling, you won't allow it to pass you by. I just want to see you thrive." but only 4 of you. And they want you to act fast, not because there's limited spots and there's just so many people chomping at the bit to be mentored by them. It's to create the sense of urgency so you think less about the opportunity and just feel like, oh, I gotta do this now, so you're more likely to make the investment. This month, I'm accepting 4 brand new people to personally coach in BAM this April. Thing is, there are a lot of people interested in working with me this month. In order to keep this fair for everyone, the first 4 people to submit their paperwork will secure a spot. If you're interested in working with me this month, you need to pay the $33 to become a member ASAP. You know, it's a lovely story, but there's a major plot hole. If there were so many people interested in being coached by you, why you gotta post about it on your stories? It's because she's lying. In a post she made months after this story, she says she's only made 8 sales total, and she told me personally that most of those were Trifecta sales, so she's probably sold to closer to like 4 people in the 1.5 years that she's been with Enagic, yet she has so many people in this 1 month wanting to work with her.
If you want in, let me know stat. I have other clients, aka family members, on the line waiting to get in. I gotta go. Uncle Rick's calling.
What's really sad about this is she was the girl from earlier who took notes on Zoe's call and was writing down, "You are not in debt, it is spending your money in a smart way." Micro commitments. This is from a team call with Zoe. If she wasn't your favorite, I'm sure she will be now. The big thing that I really want to talk about, that I'm really excited about sharing with everyone because I found a lot of success in it in the last few weeks, is using micro commitments and implementing them into like every aspect when talking to your leads. Leads are people who they're trying to make sales to, aka every single person with a beating heart. Micro commitments is basically just getting people to say yes to really small things. Just asking the simplest questions like, does that sound good? So even if they didn't really send you that interested of a message, but you want to get them to watch the web class, you can be like, hey, I have this really awesome web class, but before I send it to you, I just want to make sure you have like 30 minutes to an hour to set aside. Does that sound good to you, or is that cool to you? In her Typeform questionnaire, she says it's filled with a crap load of micro commitments. It's just getting them to say yes. It's the psychology of getting people to say yes to you. You know, to me, micro commitments feels very manipulative, and it seems like a tactic that would be used to recruit people into a cult. While we're on the subject of her, some other strategies she uses are, I started labeling myself as self-employed even before I'd made a first sale or made a commission. I was like, yeah, this is what I do full time. Like, I distribute Kangen water machines and promote the message of health, wealth, and sustainability. But are y'all really promoting sustainability if the majority of what you post about is flying from country to country to country every week instead of actually posting about the water machine itself? Don't think so. Then there was some sort of like transitional phase where Kangen movement was through the CEO movement platform, so that's why she's going to talk about CEO in this next quote, which is my absolute all-time favorite from her. Referring to her leads, she says, if they start asking me 1 trillion questions, I'm like, literally all of this shit is answered in CEO movement. Like, I can't be bothered to answer all these questions. And just tell them to do the 14-day free trial of CEO. Such a sweetheart. Preying on people during the pandemic. This is the most disgusting thing these people and hunts from all MLMs have been doing, in my opinion. I mean, from the very beginning, they have been constantly preying on people who have lost their jobs, been laid off, or are just worried about the future of the economy, and trying to get them to join an industry where 99.6% of people lose money.
Never been a better time to get into multi-level marketing. I just got into my wife's sister's mom's fiance's essential oil downline. It's a business opportunity. I'm not even gonna sell products myself because they're junk. Nobody wants to buy them. I'm just gonna get people into my downline to sell them.
They'll say things like, now more than ever, it's so important to look inward and determine whether or not you want to be in control of your health, of your income, of your life. The alternative, leave these important life-giving things in the hands of your government, your boss, or just sheer hope that this doesn't affect you or the people you love. It's time to tune out of the incessant fear-based news and tap into doing your own research. This is just truly scratching the surface of what this machine can do for your health. Not to mention, if you tapped into the business, you could create an additional stream of income. So they're all like, don't live in fear. But if any part of you is still anxious about this CV, please consider purchasing a Kangen machine. so I can profit off your fear. In the coming weeks after this pandemic is over, my online business will boom. These months are gonna make the $19,000 month I had in February look like nothing. While most businesses are shut down, this one is growing even faster. Our business is thriving now more than ever. Imagine seeing the hand sanitizer companies brag about how much more money they've been making due to the pandemic. Like, imagine them saying this: yes, our business is thriving during this time. I'm sorry if that upsets you. We work with health products, so pandemic on health only helps us. The only CEOs, or small business owners as they like to call themselves, that would ever say something like that are MLMers. But don't worry, it gets worse. We are all in the process of transitioning to work online. You thought your job is secure? Look, little virus, and you are jobless for weeks. Learn your lesson. There are thousands of opportunities to work online and be your own boss. And hey, you'll never have to shut down your own company and make yourself go broke, right? I don't think she could have been any more patronizing if she tried. Unfortunately for her and all the other Enagic distributors, they clearly aren't aware of the fact that Enagic could shut down their distributorship program anytime they wanted. Mary Kay, one of the biggest and most well-known MLMs, got rid of its Australia and New Zealand distributorship programs, and the distributors only found out like a couple weeks beforehand via email. When everyone's freaking out because of the CV and you earn your income with your phone and Wi-Fi,
there's people that are dying.
What I think her quote really translates to is, when you lack the ability to feel empathy for the hundreds of millions of people across the world who have been laid off or lost their jobs because the only thing you feel is your superiority complex, reminding you how special you are from working from home and how stupid everyone else is for not. Because these people truly act like they are the forefathers of online businesses. I mean, when they explain their daily routines, they make it sound like they're the first people to ever be able to work from home or the beach or choose their own hours, and like, no one has ever heard of that before. Everything they say has such an overdramatic vibe to it because their job is to make their job sound appealing. Like, I'm a full-time YouTuber, I can work when I want and where I want, but I don't go around telling people that every chance I get. It's so alarming though that they think this is okay. But that's what MLMs do to people.
They're taking advantage of the pain and the suffering of others, the anxiety of others, the fear of others. I mean, everything. There's nothing that's off limits. Every MLM creates this type of person. So these people might not be these types of people. They might not behave this way and act this way before they get in MLMs, but once they are in MLMs, these types of businesses change them.
To them, the ends justify the means, but then they'll also create their own justifications to make it seem like they're just doing some great act of service by offering a business opportunity where 99% of people don't make any money. They'll act like, and I'm sure most truly believe, that they're changing the world. And this is what they'll promote to make themselves seem just so selfless and caring.
As an entrepreneur, it's important for me to disguise my blatant hunger for large sums of money under altruistic notions that my business is merely a way for me to help people and save the world.
Making income claims and flexing. I would say this is the biggest selling tactic used, and no one does flex culture like the BAM girls because they try to spiritualize it and make it seem altruistic, when in reality, it's just superficial and self-serving. They make their lives seem as amazing as possible, so you want their life, and then they can say, here, this is how I'm living like this, and you can do it too. Look at how much money I'm making. Look at how I can travel anywhere I want, or work 10 hours a week and work from the beach. Elissa admits, with this kind of business, it's often traveling and living that freedom lifestyle that's going to bring you the work. Their content is the type that I find really detrimental. So many, mainly young girls, are gonna look up to them and just wish they could be like that. They're the types of influencers that a lot of people compare their lives to, but that's what they want because that's how they make sales. When people talk about what led them to join BAM, you'll see that this is usually what convinced them. One girl told me that the promises of abundance and lifestyle were the main things that drew her in. They convince people that they're all gonna succeed in this business, and it's really sad to see. I finally broke the news to my husband yesterday that we probably made the best purchase in our life. Welcome to 2A. Get ready to write your out letter to work. Send it. This person just hit 2A, so they've made 3 sales and are already being encouraged to quit their job. Then the income claims, oh boy.
I find that the more I can successfully tell you how successful I am, the more successful I become.
That obviously helps your success.
It's ridiculous that the distributors don't follow their company's policies or FTC guidelines, and that's usually because they don't know what they are or don't know what an income claim is. But I think even if they did, they wouldn't care, because as long as there's no consequences, talking or bragging about how much money they make all the time is what allows them to make that much money. I tried contacting a few different people after seeing them make income claims just to ask if they're aware of the policy or not. I was very polite and respectful in my opinion, but Macy, the founder of the Free Life Movement, ignored me, and one of the Conscious Creators Ohana founders blocked me. One of the higher-ups, Clarice, ignored me, so I sent a follow-up saying, "So you're just gonna ignore me?" And then she blocked me. I asked a girl who wasn't a top dog, and she said, "I think if you read the policy, you should know what an income claim is." And then proceeded to demonstrate that she didn't know what an income claim is. The rest of what she said made zero sense, so I'm not even gonna go over it, but eventually she blocked me. I was also blocked by 3 other people for other reasons. I was blocked by the girl who I spoke about earlier, who I tried to explain multi-level marketing to. Tara, an ex-top dog, made some stories about this app which sounded very sponsored, so I sent her a message from my second account and just explained that if it was sponsored, she had to disclose that. In her audio back to me, she told me that it wasn't sponsored, but it was just a close friends app that she wanted to support. I said, okay, cool, the link I sent does say you should disclose if you have a personal relationship with the brand though. Then I was swiftly blocked. She also decided to come to my YouTube channel and comment on the live chat of my video about Kangen water, and then for whatever reason went over to my main Instagram account like an hour later and blocked me. And lastly, I had asked one of the higher ups, Bryn, if I could ask her a few questions. After she said yes, I asked her how long it took to make her investment back and what does she think draws the most people into Enagic, and she blocked me for that. Or after that. Maybe for some other random reason, I don't know. Just very interesting reasons to block people in my opinion. So eventually I figured I'd just reach out to Aaliyah and see if she'd consider trying to enforce the income claim policy a little more and maybe making people aware of it. You know, I was thinking she could just put out a little statement on the Facebook group, nothing too hard. And she was very nice, but despite her saying that they have a lawyer who works under FTC guidelines, she demonstrated to me that she doesn't have an understanding of what counts as an income claim, because her example of what isn't one is identical to what the FTC has used as an example of what is one. If you're in an MLM and you're making a lot of money, you're not supposed to say how much you make, period. It's disappointing that most of these folks don't care to learn about what they're not allowed to do and why they're not allowed to do it. I mean, income claims are not allowed for the protection of consumers, but making money is the most important thing, so they don't care. No, actually, they don't care about money. They care about you. I am sharing with you a business opportunity today. Why? Because I care about you, and I see you, and I know how hard it is to make ends meet sometimes. Seriously, they don't ever even think about money or talk about it or brag about it or literally anything like that, because they literally just do this business as an act of charity. All money is energy. It's currency. It means nothing. That's why I talk about how much I make 14 times a day. When they're trying to recruit you, they'll act like they just want what's best for you because they know what it's like to be a broke, miserable loser like you who can't work from the beach. Although I think it's been made pretty clear that that's a load of crap.
Hey, just standing here in front of my expensive beach house, but I'm gonna act casual about the house. I'm gonna tell you it doesn't really matter, even though it is what really matters. Then I'm gonna share an altruistic thought with you, like dreams coming true or helping other people is what matters, while I'm still standing in front of the house that really matters. That'll enable you to be greed-fueled enough to sign up for my Get Ultra Wealthy Now course, while believing you're doing it for noble reasons.
Especially when you look at how they talk about people. Like for those of you who don't know that much about New Age spirituality, let me tell you, there are a lot of New Agey influencers who are not nearly as caring behind the scenes. I'm not trying to say at any point in this video that they're all sociopaths and they literally don't care about anyone at all. But you can have good qualities and also have bad qualities and be partially fueled by greed and selfishness. Many of them have very holier than thou attitudes. Spiritual superiority is very abundant in this community. I get the impression that a lot of the higher ups have really let the money go to their head due to how egotistical and selfish they act. I mean, just look at some of this stuff. Here's a news article about high levels of arsenic found in bottled water at stores. Most people would be angry or sad because that could harm people, right? Not these girls. One's response was cringe, and another simply put a smiley face. Bad press for bottled water is a win for Kangen and her business, so apparently that matters more than anything else. Here's a post from a Kangen meme page about dehydrated people and people who drink Kangen water. One of the higher-ups, Nina, commented, "People out here looking dead. Is it really that funny to make a joke out of something that negatively affects people's health? I don't think so." Those and so many of the other things that we've talked about or have yet to go over don't really give off the impression of a caring, compassionate community who just want what's best for you.
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm really just all about helping people.
Being misleading. There's a lot of misinformation being spread around this community of elevated entrepreneurs. Just one sale makes you $1,130, and the commissions go up exponentially from there. So even just 30 sales or 30 people makes you nearly $100,000. Everyone can make 30 connections. Yeah, but you're not gonna get the next 30 people you meet to drop 10K to join your business. Something they love to do is mislead people into thinking that you will make $1,130 on your first sale. But this is the commission for if you start with a trifecta, the $10,000 investment, and you sell a trifecta. If you start with a trifecta but sell a K8, you're not making that much. If you start with a K8 and sell a trifecta, you're not making that much. We also have the really bad math that's going on here. On this graph I made, the purple line represents trifecta earnings from 2A to 6A, and the blue is a graph of an actual exponential line. As you can see, the commissions are linear, not exponential. They also like to say that commissions cap at around $4,000, but what they show is the 6A commission for selling a trifecta. Again, only if you have a trifecta do you make that much, and it says $3,300 per sale. So they round up $700. A little too much there. Then people like Iris, Becky, and Macy also have partners who do Enagic, and so they'll usually, if not always, combine the two incomes to make the number bigger. So when you see Macy talking about how she made $500,000 in her first year, not only was she in an MLM and at the top of an MLM for years before she started with Breakaway, but I'm like 99.9% sure she's also combining her income with her partner's income. So she alone did not make $500,000 just out of nowhere in her first year in an MLM or an online business. YouTube testimonials. I spoke to a BAM member who told me they've been posting the videos people have made criticizing BAM in the Facebook group and telling people to go and make positive testimonials in hopes that those will get more views and then show up first in search results. She also said Aaliyah was going to give $1,000 to the person who made the best video. And when it comes to the mean, hateful videos, like I said earlier, a lot of them will go over and dislike the video and then also leave comments acting as if the person was way meaner than they ever were.
These people want to be perpetual victims, and they're not. They're not victims at all, right? But they want to be, because that means that they wouldn't have to take responsibility for the fact that they're hurting people in a very material way, right? They don't have to take responsibility for their actions. They don't have to take responsibility for hurting people. They can just chalk every single thing up to people being haters and people being negative.
And people being jealous. A small creator, Daisy Levis, made a video about Breakaway, and in it talked super briefly about Alyssa. Didn't say anything mean about her whatsoever, but Alyssa commented on the video and must have gotten people in her downline, her roommate, and even her mom to comment on the video. They all acted like Daisy was super mean when in reality she was way nicer in her video than they were in her comments. Before she starts talking about Alyssa, she says,
"And I did follow her for a while. Again, I don't have anything against these girls. I love the content they share. I love what they're trying to do with their platform, and I totally love their photography and everything in their travels is really cool."
But then they're like, "I'm so sorry you feel this hate in your heart, and I hope you have a job that pays you thousands while sitting on your ass making this stupid video." Alyssa's mom said, "Daisy, please remove this video. It is illegal to use images that are not yours, and it is very risky to defame someone, especially when you're incorrect with your content. I'm happy to discuss this further with you and amicably explain the legal ramifications if you wish." Most people watching this probably know it's not illegal to use someone's images in your video, it's fair use, and this woman clearly has no idea what the criteria are that must be met for something to be considered defamation. First, it has to be something demonstrably and objectively false. So just saying something mean that is subjective to you isn't defamatory. It must be seen or heard by a third party. Of course, in a YouTube video, that criteria is met. It must be quantifiably injurious. So basically, she would have to prove that Daisy's video caused financial harm to Alyssa's business, which would be really, really hard to prove, especially with a video that only has a couple thousand views. And it has to be unprivileged by law, meaning it can't be protected by free speech. So very immature, in my opinion, to get a bunch of people to go gang up on somebody who made a very respectful video that mentioned you in it for a minute, and then for the mom to threaten legal action to try to scare her into taking the video down. Very, very immature. Promoting each other. They're constantly promoting each other and reposting others' content on their Instagram stories, which, you know, it's great to support your friends and business partners, but they really only do it for business reasons, in my opinion, especially because a lot of times somebody will repost someone else's story and then that person will repost the repost of their own stories to like show their followers that people are talking about them or what they're saying. A band member told me that when Aaliyah hit 6A2-3, like everyone was talking about it. I mean, pretty much whenever somebody hits any rank 4 and above, you'll see somebody talking about it, usually multiple people, and it's all about making the opportunity just look as good as possible. Like in this story, Macy congratulates her fiance for hitting 6A2, even though they live together, so what's the point when you could just say congrats in person? Maybe he was, I don't know, out of town, but still.
I think an email would be sufficient.
Everyone is a salesperson. Most of them I don't think like the idea that they are salespeople, and I think they know leads won't really like that idea either, so a lot of them will say, everyone is selling something. The reality is that all business is sales. Name one company that doesn't somehow benefit from sales and incoming money. Benefiting from sales or money does not make you a salesperson. A salesperson is someone whose job is selling things directly to customers. My stepdad is a track inspector for the railroad. He doesn't sell railroad items to people, he just inspects the tracks. So therefore he is not a salesperson, and that's all that's needed to debunk the idea that everyone is a salesperson, which I'm pretty sure nobody outside of MLMs has ever thought in their entire lives, so probably not really something I need to go into anymore. It's also really ironic that they don't like to be considered salespeople, yet basically all their training is about how to market and sell a dream, a product. So while not everyone is a salesperson, everyone is a potential future sale. In a call led by Bryn, she says, everyone is a lead, honestly. Larissa has given her sales pitches to her Uber drivers and people she's rented out her house to and would never take no for an answer. One girl said in a mastermind, reconnecting with people on Instagram, that's still lead generation. Even if I have no intention of sharing the business with them, I just think they're a cool person, it's still making a connection with somebody, and I still count that as under lead generation. Aaliyah has said, when you speak to others about your life, Breakaway Movement should really be a huge component of what you talk about. So be aware that some of these people just think of you as a lead in their head. Be inauthentically authentic. When people ask me for tips on starting a YouTube channel, I usually tell them to be authentic because that's the right thing to do, right? Well, these girls tell people to be authentic because that'll help make sales. Zoe has said, be goofy and real and authentic because people like that. That's what builds the relationship with those people. Regarding personal branding, Aaliyah says, essentially, the goal here is to brand yourself and your life as an individual on this platform to establish really strong, meaningful connections, personalized connections with these people online before you even begin to consider selling them or sales pitching them in any way whatsoever. Of course, we know we're more likely to listen or buy something or support someone that we've already established a strong connection and sense of trust with. So they pretend to be your friend so they can gain your trust, so then they can get you to give them money. Tell me, is that not the definition of a con? You're here for a reason. To make me richer. When promoting the business, they like to say, this is your sign. You're here for a reason. Aaliyah in the web class says this out of the middle of nowhere. It's not related to anything she says before or after. And to me, that feels really predatory. These people who are into New Age are going to take that very seriously and believe that the universe is sending them a sign that they need to follow. And they use other phrases to target these types of people as well. One girl who was in Breakaway told me about what pulled her into BAM, and she says, I think the way they approached marketing was very clever. For example, they'd say, if you don't want to live a free life, then this is not for you. After I joined, they would send email after email after email saying the same kind of manipulative stuff, saying that joining their movement is an act of self-love, and if I really love myself, I would join their movement. If I wanted abundance for myself, I would join. So gross to say those things so you can profit off someone. The bandwagon effect. This is kind of funny, but they like to use the bandwagon effect to promote Kangen water as if celebrities drinking it means that it's amazing and everyone should get it, but then some celebrities drink bottled alkaline water, which Kangen folks detest. So if those celebrities don't convince them to drink the bottled alkaline water, why should Big Sean or Jay Alvarez convince me to buy a K8? Also, they're not even supposed to be using Bandwagon. Enagic says no independent distributor should use the likeness of any personality. Ethics over popularity. Ethics? We don't know her.
She doesn't even go here.
The more you spend, the more money the universe gives you back. This is an extremely manipulative and predatory thing for anyone to say if they're trying to make money off you. If you hear someone trying to use this argument to get you to come to their retreat or buy their book or course or join their MLM, run, okay? Run far away. These girls talk about how every dollar they spend, they make it back 3 times or 7 times, and kind of encourage people to spend a lot of money because that puts a message out there to the universe, and the universe will get that message and send you back more money than you spent. But if you don't spend a lot, then the universe is going to think you don't want to make any money and you'll be broke forever, so join my MLM and allow me to make a couple thousand off you. College and 9-to-5 jobs equals stupid, miserable, pathetic life. I took 2 gap years and I'm self-employed, so I totally understand and agree that going to college and living the normal 9-to-5 lifestyle is not for everyone. But these people act like going to college is the stupidest decision you could ever make, and people only do it to conform to societal norms, and if you work a normal job, you'll just live a miserable life, and you can't be fulfilled unless you're your own boss. In a mastermind, Iris says, what's actually crazy is that college does not freaking promise anything. Most people graduate college and do not get a job in their field that their degree is in. Well, going off what people say about the unsuccessful ones in Enagic, that's just because they didn't work hard enough. If employers hired people who didn't put in the work in school, they'd have to start from square one with them, like teaching a baby how to walk. Or is it that if you fail in Enagic, it's your fault, but if you fail in a typical job, well, that's the college system's fault. In a regular job, you have a 100% chance of making minimum wage. In an MLM, you have almost a 100% chance of making no wage. But all these people want to be their own bosses, and an MLM is the easiest way to do that if you really aren't that entrepreneurial.
You know, I'm feeling it a lot because of entrepreneurship. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, even though they never sold anything in their goddamn life.
At the end of the day, an MLM is a business you're joining, not starting from scratch. You're not the CEO of the MLM, you have no say in the products or the prices. You would be left jobless if the company decided to shut down, and you would have no say in that decision. All you're doing is being a walking advertisement for the company. You're paying them to advertise their products, you're paying them to work for them. It's very clever, honestly. Not for the people who join, but for the companies. Being self-employed does not give you this perfect life either. They'll never talk about this because they have to make their lives seem as grand as possible. But there are a lot of downsides to being self-employed, and it is not for everyone. First of all, you never clock in, but you also never clock out. If you're not really good at time management, it's going to be hard to find a balance between work and the rest of your life. Underworking and overworking are 2 patterns that are really easy to fall into. And it's also really easy to get distracted. You might think it's just gonna be this like great time, you sitting in your pajamas all day, in your bed, on your computer, but pretty much everyone who's been self-employed for a while gets ready and they have a specific working location. It's really hard to motivate yourself when you're just like hanging out by the poolside in your bikini. You get a lot more work done if you pretend like you're working in a normal work setting. You're basically always on your phone or your laptop. I mean, my screen time is insane. It can be very lonely for some people just sitting at home all day by themselves working on their computer. You have no benefits. You're not guaranteed a paycheck. Enagic doesn't guarantee income at all. Not having a boss isn't always the best thing, despite them acting like all bosses are evil incarnate and everyone should be their own boss. Some of these girls have talked about how in their early 20s they had to move back in with their parents since they couldn't afford to live on their own because they felt too entitled to go out and get a full-time job and, God forbid, have a boss. So they would just make and sell artwork or work 10-hour weeks maximum because they just couldn't be bothered to do anything else.
I think the best thing would be to start with a job.
No.
Yeah, absolutely, she needs a job.
Now, there are a lot of good reasons to move back in with your parents as an adult, but not wanting to work, in my opinion, is not one of them. That's just mooching. And bosses do serve a purpose. They can explain things, answer questions, help keep order, make sure that things are being done properly and efficiently. What's so ironic though is that a lot of the higher ups have people working for them, like assistants, making them someone's boss. They turn into the very thing they swore to destroy. Back when BAM had like 500 members, Aaliyah had 5 assistants. See, they don't have a problem with people working under someone as long as it benefits them. They'll criticize 9-to-5 jobs, yet rely heavily on people who work those jobs. Do they want the people who work at the restaurants they go to quit their jobs and become digital nomads? Probably not, because then they wouldn't be able to eat there anymore. Do they want all the people who manufacture cell phones to start their own online businesses? Probably not, because then how would they be able to work from the beach on their phone? Do they want all the Enagic employees to quit their corporate jobs and go travel the world? Probably not, because without Enagic employees, there is no Enagic, and you can't sell the lifestyle without the product. For most people, going to college and getting a normal job is going to be the best choice. You have way better and more options. Many people enjoy college or having a typical corporate job, having a schedule, any of these things that they'll make out to be inherently bad to sell the product. They act like you can only work whenever and wherever you want if you're doing what they're doing. That's just not true. My mom's a hairdresser, which is a normal job, and she can choose her hours. There are tons of companies out there that allow you to work online and work wherever you want, from your home, from your bed, the beach, Bali. They act like you can't have financial freedom or financial abundance, residual income, or make money while you sleep unless you're doing what they're doing. Again, these are things that can all be achieved through going to college and getting a normal job, and you probably have a better chance of doing that way than you do in an MLM, where you get nothing if you choose to leave or if you're forced to leave, whereas you keep your college degree and job experience forever. MLMs don't really look good on resumes. So while working for yourself might seem like the dream lifestyle, I can tell you it's not for everyone. Different things work for different people, and going to college or getting a typical 9-to-5 job is not bound to make you have a dreadful life. Fake it till you make it, girl. On one of the team calls, someone asked this in the chat. When first starting out, how did you market yourself or promote your business when you hadn't yet acquired your desired reality? To which Iris, who was hosting the call, says in this exact way, dude, 1, fake it till you make it, girl. Like, I'm not saying lie, but definitely you are abundant. She tells people to say things like, this business is going to allow me to, or by 2020, I'm going to. Alyssa has said, it's so important to be speaking what you want to happen rather than what is happening. You don't have to lie, you just have to word carefully what you want. So when you see someone saying, in May, I will be quitting my day job and saying goodbye to the 9-to-5 lifestyle for the rest of my life. $10,000 months and rank 4A, flying first class just for the comfort, staying in a place I always told myself was too expensive. In just 3 short months, I'll be living a life of complete and utter freedom at only 22 years old. That's not because they know for sure that's going to happen, it's because they're trying to speak it into existence. This specific girl might have quit her job, I think she did, but all the other things haven't happened yet as of July, which is 2 months after she said they would be happening. Paid ads. Like I said, some do paid ads, some prefer not to. Sometimes people in the Facebook group will give tips on how to get your ads approved on Facebook or Instagram because you're not allowed to advertise MLMs on either of those. But they're not an MLM, you know. If you see any of these types of ads, you can report them on Facebook under network marketing, and on Instagram I think you'd have to report them as misleading or spam because they don't really have a specific button for MLMs. Something interesting that I actually watched in a Conscious Creators Ohana team call that I got invited to was they talked about creating social proof so your ads don't look like spam. The person recommended that people run their ads in places like Thailand, India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan for a few days because that's cheap, and then run them in like the US and it'll show that you have thousands of views. I found that kind of interesting, but I'm not sure if that's something that is encouraged in BAM. They target your emotions. Emotions make decisions, and good salespeople know that, like Brianna during the pandemic, for example.
I understand that emotions are high and this is a real thing right now. And I think that's what drives my point home even further. That I didn't want to wait to post that story when things have died down and emotions aren't so high, because the time to do your own research and to tap into yourself is right now when these emotions are high and you're recognizing that, holy shit, this is real. I am at the mercy of whether or not I can go into work and create a paycheck for myself.
Remember that a con man won't sell you facts, but emotions, because they know that you'll fill in the rest, and once you're invested a penny, psychologically you'll be in for a pound.
When talking about making sales, Alyssa says that you have to share the good and the bad parts of your story because that's gonna bring you the people that relate to you and want what you have. In the Conscious Creators Ohana team call, they told people to talk about a dark thing you went through before Enagic and wrap it all up by saying you joined the community and it made it all better. A girl in BAM explains here how she made sales without a lot of followers. She says, I worked in making genuine connection, finding their pain points and emphasizing on it in Instagram stories and posts. In what world is that forming a genuine connection? That's so unethical. In one of the BAM training videos, a guy says, serve them to the highest by helping them hit their fake rock bottom, because rock bottoms make people make big decisions. So they create the problem by convincing you your life is worse than it actually is, and then offer you this solution, which is you give them money.
I'm gonna hit you with a story about when I was at rock bottom. People love to be inspired by a comeback story, aka people are easily persuaded to
join Breakaway
when I sell them a false sense of hope through my carefully fabricated story of going from nothing to glorious heights.
It's not an MLM. Hopefully I've already explained this well enough. I do think the majority of people in Breakaway don't know it's an MLM. I don't think they're like lying, but I do think talking about how they believe it's not an MLM is kind of a sales tactic because they try to make it seem like it's better than it actually is because it's direct sales or network marketing. I highly recommend checking out Illuminati's video on what is an MLM, the history of multi-level marketing, because I just don't have time to go over why MLMs are so destructive and the business model is inherently flawed in this video, but it is really important to be aware of because it's a huge aspect of both Enagic and the Breakaway movement. So those are some tactics that I believe are used to get people into Breakaway. Now let's look at some tactics used to keep people in Breakaway. The only way you can fail is if you quit. Because of the MLM business model, this is objectively false. Even if you could create a hypothetical situation where every single person works super hard and nobody quit, the majority would still be at the bottom, not making money. But by convincing you that if you just have persistence, you'll eventually succeed, they keep you from wanting to leave the group. And I guess it helps the higher-ups pretend like there's a good reason why the majority of their downline is struggling, so they don't have to acknowledge the reality of the business model. The law of attraction. According to Aaliyah, the only reason she made $350,000 last year was because of the law of attraction. I would guess that just about all MLMs use the law of attraction to convince people that if they just have a positive, optimistic outlook and believe in themselves, they will succeed in this business. But if they start to have doubts creep up, that could affect the outcome, so never doubt yourself or your abilities or this company or these products. Never allow yourself to be human and have negative thoughts because that will attract negative things into your life. I've done an entire video on the law of attraction and found no evidence for the magical type of the law of attraction that some people believe in, like your thoughts can have an effect on reality without any action being taken. The only evidence for that is people interpreting their personal experiences to be evidence without being able to demonstrate a causal link between the two things. If you like and use the law of attraction, that's fine, don't take this personally, but I think for some people it can almost become like a form of brainwashing yourself. Since it's not based on evidence from my research, people are just convincing themselves that if they, for example, dream about hitting 6A and journal about it as if it's already happened, then it will happen. But if it doesn't, well then you just weren't using it the right way, or you still had limiting beliefs. But if another person says they got to 6A without using the law of attraction, well no, they were using it, they just didn't know. Basically, if you end up not achieving your goals, well then you just need to work more on personal development or watch some law of attraction speeches from like Abraham Hicks. The BAM girls are super into Abraham Hicks, which if you don't know, is apparently a spirit that talks through a woman named Esther Hicks and spoke through her late husband Jerry Hicks, who long ago just so happened to be one of the top earners in the MLM Amway. It's almost like their teachings were made for multi-level marketers. I personally feel that there's a high level of selfishness being promoted by a lot of law of attraction teachers online. I mean, it's like a lot of people are being taught that life revolves around them. Here's a quote from Aaliyah's Law of Attraction Mastermind. I'm finding $5 on the side of the road. Life is happening for me. Maybe I'm accidentally running over a toad with my car. Life is happening for me. Like, that's one of the most self-centered things I've ever heard. Like, I don't understand how she, as an ethical vegan, looks at accidentally killing an animal as life happening for her. Or here's a post from Alyssa where she repeats, "Your only job on earth is to feel joy." Even if it's at the expense of others, I guess. It's really odd to me because, like, when I was into New Age spirituality, it was kind of a different type where, of course, you were focused on improving yourself, but it was also about giving back. Whereas this kind of, like, law of attraction based New Age stuff has a very, like, me vibe to it. To each their own, but to me that just seems like spiritualizing superficiality so they feel better about themselves for wanting to buy a yacht, which most spiritual people would look at as an unnecessarily unsustainable item that literally serves no purpose to exist other than to feed rich people's self-indulgent lifestyles. Along with the law of attraction comes money mindset. Those who aren't making money in the biz are told that they just need to work on their money mindset. What this means is that basically if you're poor, it's because you have a bad money mindset, which could look like thinking that making money is hard or that money is the root of all evil. But if your main focus in life is to become rich, that's a good money mindset and it will lead you to become wealthy. I know what you're thinking. Finally, a solution to poverty. I mean, this is just great news, right? Who would have thought that young, white, attractive, English-speaking girls living in Western countries who just by pure chance happen to be one of those privileged demographics would have solved global poverty? Especially ones who have no understanding of basic economics or really anything outside their privileged worldview. If you're struggling financially, it's because of your mindset and lack of desire to put in the work. Yep, can't argue with that. I mean, just like, what do you say about something that ridiculous? All of us have the power within to be abundantly supported as we desire. There's never a shortage of money to go around. You know, I'm not an economist, but I'm pretty sure we can't all really have a lot of money. I know that's not what those quotes say, but like, a lot is relative to how much other people have, so we can't all have a ton of money that we can just spend on whatever the heck we want. I don't know if everyone in the world can have a comfortable income, like just a decent, livable one. I'm not sure, but I do know that a heck of a lot of money in the world is hoarded by big corporations and wealthy people who spend it on expensive, useless luxuries because they made it, so they're entitled to it, which is, of course, far more important than, you know, malnourished children or sweatshop workers, etc. I mean, maybe if these children just chose not to be hungry, then they wouldn't die of malnourishment. Maybe the sweatshop workers just need to work on their money mindset and then they'll be paid fair wages. Money is energy, and we need to shift the energy to the people who are willing to make positive change for our planet and its people. And the people who convince young girls to commit fraud in order to get approved for credit cards so they can invest in a business opportunity that they've been led to believe will make them millionaires, when in reality they statistically have less than a 1% chance of making any money at all, and instead are just funding the people at the top of their MLM's luxurious lifestyles. Apparently those people fit into that category too. Someone once asked Aaliyah for advice about getting into selling Kangen water if they were broke, and unlike her sister, she didn't tell them to falsify information to get approved for credit cards. She said, "My team and I probably would not recommend you start sharing Kangen machines until you work on reprogramming your mindset and belief system. We're in no position to surround ourselves with people who have such strong limiting beliefs and negative perspectives. Yet they'll watch all the negative perspectives of them online." Honestly though, that's just like so elitist to say. And what's funny about it is that all the top dogs will talk about how they had limiting beliefs or a bad money mindset in the beginning, yet if anyone else has those same feelings, then, oh, you're just not ready for it yet, or I don't want you on my team. If you can't be around anyone who doesn't think exactly like you because it would cause some sort of emotional disturbance, you're not as woke as you think you are. I'm gonna make a whole video on privilege and manifesting money, so that's all I'm gonna talk about here. Echo chamber. While it's great to be part of a like-minded community, BAM promotes ideas and beliefs on such a wide range of subjects and doesn't really, there's no space to share alternative perspectives, so everyone kind of becomes a carbon copy of each other. There's very little diversity in beliefs, especially between the higher ups, and a lot of the things spoken about in the community are preached as fact. And so people who join and see these higher ups as kind of being on a pedestal are going to just take what they say as truth and not be as likely to question what they're saying or understand that they could be wrong. And if they speak their unpopular opinion in, say, the Facebook group, they'll just be met with people defending the group's position and not really seeming open to hearing about another perspective. I mean, how else could this group exist for a year and basically no one knows it's an MLM? Because people weren't encouraged to do their own research and no one was open to hearing about the perspectives of those who did their own research and learned that it's an MLM. I spoke to a girl who has lived on the island of Kauai in Hawaii, which is where BAM is based out of, and a lot of the higher ups live there. And she told me that everyone there is talking about the law of attraction and abundance and all this stuff all the time. People there see it as so common and normal that it's often just accepted as truth. And this is called communal reinforcement. The less diversity and beliefs there are in a group, the less questioning is going to be done, especially when questioning isn't really welcomed. And that's one of the probably many things that leads groups like these to becoming echo chambers and making a lot of the members really out of touch with reality. Cult-like behavior. There are quite a few things that BAM or members of BAM do that to many people make it seem kind of culty. In fact, cult-like behavior is present in most, if not all, multi-level marketing companies. Stephen Hassan, a prominent authority on cults, actually warns people about MLMs in this article, in which he calls them commercial cults. He is well known for his creation of the BITE model, which is one of the more popular models for assessing the influence of a particular group. We're going to use it to analyze the influence of the Breakaway Movement because it's much more applicable to non-religious groups compared to other popular models. BITE is an acronym for Behavioral Control, Information Control, Thought Control, and Emotional Control. So I want to go through these and give a few of my personal thoughts on them, but more so leave it up to you to kind of draw your own conclusions. Also, just something to note is that for any of these that I think are yes, that doesn't mean I think they're being done on purpose because Aaliyah wants to create her own cult and control people. Oftentimes, unhealthy influence is not created on purpose by the leaders of a group, or is kind of done unconsciously when they see what is benefiting them most. So, for behavioral control, promote dependence or obedience. To a small extent, I do feel like they kind of just want people to do what they say, and challenging the leaders of the group hasn't really been welcomed from what I've seen. Modify behavior with rewards and punishments. An example of this is Aaliyah giving $1,000 to the person who made the best BAM promotional video. I'm sure there are other occurrences, but I don't think it's something that's super prominent. Dictate where and with whom you live. No, but everyone ends up moving to Hawaii anyways, forcing more and more natives out to usually the mainland US because they can no longer afford to live there. Restrict or control sexuality? No. Control clothing or hairstyle? No. Regulate what and how much you eat and drink? No. Deprive you of 7 to 9 hours of sleep? No, but I'm sure many people who are trying to attain success end up working a ton and therefore getting less sleep. Exploit you financially? You know, I'm sure that could be argued, but I'm not gonna make any claims. Restrict leisure time and activities? No, but same as the sleep one, I'm sure there are people, and I actually have heard of some who do that so they can attain success. Require you to seek permission for major decisions? No. For information control? Deliberately withhold or distort information. I honestly have no clue if this is happening. I just get the impression that so many are misinformed because of lack of proper research, but I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere at the top things were being twisted a little bit. Forbid you from speaking with ex-members and critics? No. Discourage access to non-cult sources of information? I do think so. I've heard some people say that like you shouldn't listen to what your friends and family members say about the movement or about Kangen water. You shouldn't listen to anyone who isn't where you want to be, and so I think that kind of often translates to not listening to anyone except for the top dogs of BAM. Divide information into insider versus outsider doctrine. Yeah, some definitely believe that everyone who speaks against them is like a shill or a hater or has some sort of agenda, and they're definitely not encouraged to consider outside perspectives that are different from what's promoted in the group. But you know, if you aren't open to other perspectives, you will never learn and you will never grow. Generate and use propaganda extensively. I would say yes, maybe not extensively though, but you know, they do have like their community resources, and I kind of get the impression that a lot of them just go to there, copy and paste links or text or whatever and share that with potential leads, or they'll create like branded Breakaway Movement promotional income claim images that I assume the members are encouraged to share because you'll see them shared around on a lot of different people's Instagrams. Use information gained in confession sessions against you. Not exactly, but they could use the information that you put in your like questionnaire to kind of remind you of why you joined in case you ever have doubts. Gaslight you to make you doubt your own memory. Not sure, but probably not. Require you to report thoughts, feelings, and activities to superiors? No. Encourage you to spy and report on others' misconduct? No. For thought control, instill black versus white, us versus them, and good versus evil thinking. Yeah, some of them do think that they're like this revolutionary group that's just gonna change the entire world, but Big Pharma and a bunch of their shills are trying to stop them. And thus brings us to the introduction of quite possibly the most polarizing character in this whole mess. Aaliyah's partner, Pat, not the Tinder guy. He's definitely not your average Joe. He thinks that being a cheater and a liar aren't bad things. Those words are infected with so much disease and suffering, he says. Anyone who uses these words has an infected perception of self-authenticity. He believes that monogamy is not human and is the cause of domestic violence, and also he does not have any beliefs. In a series of stories he directed at Breakaway members, he says, "Are you being targeted online by industries that are threatened by the online advice you give about Kangen water? It has been brought to my attention by an industry insider that many of us in the Breakaway movement are being targeted. This is the game that is played when industries are threatened by a product or a product begins gaining reputable mainstream traction. The made-up lies will continue. Words like MLM, pyramid scheme, zero benefit water, scam are words that I have been told will be used against those promoting preventative health, which without hesitation proves that we all have a job to do to keep promoting these preventative measures so industry and paid industry supporters never ever win, because industry is the true authentic scam." Okay, what industry is threatened by a couple thousand 25-year-old girls who sell water machines that have very little evidence to support them? Like the multi-trillion-dollar pharmaceutical industry is worried about you guys, or the bottled water industry is worried about a water ionizer company that's been around for like 46 years and still basically no one knows about it? If anyone should feel threatened, it should be people who cross this guy when he's in a bad mood. I'm not ashamed of my reoccurring dreams about me and a gun and a different species, hint starts with H and rhymes with Newman's, of carnage strewn about the stockyards, the factories, the farms. If you're like, oh, hold on, is he talking about dreaming of committing mass murder and sharing about that proudly on his public Instagram? Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me too. I really don't think he's genuinely dangerous. I just think he's one of those compassionate vegans who hates everyone who's not vegan and like takes their anger out in this way. Not that that's normal though, because I've been an ethical vegan for 5 years and haven't dreamt about killing anyone yet. Also, I don't know if you caught it, but he said, "The made-up lies will continue," implying that anyone who calls Enagic an MLM or whatever is a liar. But that word is infected with so much disease and suffering. Anyone who uses that word has an infected perception of self-authenticity. While he doesn't seem to be super prominent in like the top dog Breakaway in-group community, he is in a relationship with Aaliyah, and I believe they live together in their Bali villa, which I think gives a little bit of insight on Aaliyah, although she's a little more self-aware and doesn't say things that controversial. But he gives off cult leader vibes to me, and I'm not the only one who thinks that.
This guy has what I consider, in my opinion, to be a very typical cult leader personality. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else. He thinks he has special knowledge. He acts very high and mighty. He seems narcissistic to me. And, you know, if you criticize him, he just comes back with personal attacks.
Anyways, on to the next thing. Change your identity, possibly even your name. No. Use loaded language and cliches to stop complex thought. Yes, although I don't think it's done on purpose, buzzwords like vibes and opportunity, financial freedom, frequency, abundance, etc. are all used to kind of like appeal to your emotions, but they're often kind of meaningless, so they'll never really go into them in much depth. Induce hypnotic or trance states to indoctrinate? No. Teach thought-stopping techniques to prevent critical thinking? I think this is a yes as well. I just really don't see that much critical thinking going on. It seems that everyone's just supposed to trust the process and believe that it will happen if they want to manifest their dream life. I think these people think that they're critical thinkers because they have a lot of beliefs that are counterculture and new age, but those two aren't really directly correlated. Instead, a lot of them seem to be avid conspiracy theorists, anti-science, and promote a lot of pseudoscience. That could be partially because Breakaway does attract the type of people who are into pseudoscientific things. I don't say that to be mean, I just know that there's a lot of pseudoscience and new age spirituality, so people who join BAM might already have a lot of pseudoscientific beliefs and or are going to be more likely to be persuaded to believe the ones that BAM promotes. This is especially true because of how these ideas are presented in New Age and BAM alike. They act like everyone who doesn't believe a lot of pseudoscience and conspiracies is brainwashed and closed-minded, and everyone who does is a free thinker and is woke. Unfortunately, I don't think that a lot of people are questioning what is being taught in BAM. They just parrot talking points promoted in the community, and that kind of creates this groupthink atmosphere. Here's some examples of pseudoscience I've seen in BAM and Conscious Creators Ohana, because I follow the leaders of that and they're like the pseudoscience queens, probably shows for big pseudoscience. So people have promoted Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop podcast, a lot of them are anti-vax, many think fluoride calcifies our pineal glands, which prevents us from being woke. Lots of them promote detoxing or other health pseudoscience, believe that 5G is super harmful. They talk about vibrations, high vibe, low vibe things. They use these scientific concepts that have been turned into like spiritual buzzwords and act like they mean something in that context, but I think if you asked any of these people to give you a numerical value for the frequency they think something vibrates at, I doubt they can do it. A website page I highly recommend checking out is Quackwatch's Distinguishing Science and Pseudoscience. There are also a lot of conspiracies promoted in the group, and from my experience, people who believe in a million different conspiracies are the most closed-minded people ever, even though they think everyone else is closed-minded. It's impossible to have a conversation with them because the majority think that everyone who doesn't have the exact same beliefs as them is like blind and a sheep and is just following the masses, is brainwashed by mainstream media. Even if you don't watch mainstream media, you're definitely brainwashed by them. And anyone with an online presence is definitely a shill for something or another. The logic they use, though, is absolutely ridiculous. You can't trust the professional scientists and doctors, but you should trust random people on the internet with no professional background voicing their opinions. Scientists shouldn't be trusted, and science is a cult, but you should look at this one scientific study or this one scientist that supports my views. Doctors don't know what they're talking about, but you should listen to this one doctor who does because they agree with me. So even if 99.9% of doctors disagree with me, they've all been misled and really don't know what they're doing, but this one does. Some conspiracies being promoted by BAM members are chemtrails, deep state stuff, New World Order, Big Pharma is bad because they make money off the sick, just like AltMed and ionizer companies, but cognitive dissonance keeps them from realizing that. Also, I think they're just jealous that Big Pharma makes so much money. They should be supporting Big Pharma's dreams to be mega wealthy and praising them for clearly having such a good money mindset. Obviously, these girls are just haters. And lastly, you can probably find multiple different examples of every CV related conspiracy in the book within members of the Breakaway. Many of them think it's a cover for 5G. Some of them are those like entitled, ridiculous anti-mask people who act like them having to wear a mask is the worst thing to ever happen in the history of humanity. In March, they allowed an ex-scientist to come on to a mastermind and ramble about how the CV really isn't that big of a deal at all, which is surprising since Pat thinks that the CV is actually cystic fibrosis because they sound the same, and I doubt Aaliyah thinks it's real either. Here's some quotes from this ex-scientist. I think this whole CV situation is complete BS. Is the CV real? Yeah, it's real, but it's not that big of a deal. Don't become a scientist. It's a waste of time. Don't become a doctor. We don't need doctors. They're a waste of time. They don't know what they're doing anyways. The worst part of this all was that the BAM girl who was kind of like hosting the call said that everyone in the chat was agreeing with him, which just shows how there's like so little diversity in beliefs and everyone just listens to what they're being told. Anyways, back to the bite model. Allow only positive thoughts. Because of law of attraction, yes, I do think positive emotions are encouraged to like an unhealthy amount by some of them. Use excessive meditation, singing, prayer, and chanting to block thoughts. No. Reject rational analysis, critical thinking, and doubt. This is one of the biggest ones. Remember in the beginning of this video when the girl was writing down notes from Zoe's team call and she wrote down, if you're a skeptic, you will attract skeptics. Yeah, they don't like anyone using their brain because you should just follow your intuition. That's something that's promoted a lot. Don't listen to the opinions of others or put too much thought into anything. Just follow and trust your intuition. And for emotional control, instill irrational fears of questioning or leaving the group. Probably not that much, but I'm sure there are many people who believe that this is the only way that they can get rich and live the life of their dreams. Label some emotions as evil, worldly, sinful, or wrong. With the law of attraction, yes, it is often promoted that there are good emotions and bad emotions. Teach emotion stopping techniques to prevent anger and homesickness. Again, law of attraction kind of does this, depending on how you use it, I suppose. Promote feelings of guilt, shame, and unworthiness? No. Shower you with praise and attention, love bombing. This is huge in MLMs, and I've definitely seen it in BAM. The communities will be like very overly lovey-dovey, more than even you would be in a close friendship. Threaten your friends and family. No, but they do encourage you to cut people out of your life who don't support your business and convince you that these people are all toxic or jealous, which is common in all MLMs, even if the person just cares about you and knows that MLMs are good ideas to get into. But then if you ever leave the group, you'll probably come to realize that the community cared about you way less than the friends and family members who tried to warn you about joining. Shun you if you disobey or disbelieve. I did speak to one girl who said, when people would question the integrity of the business, question things, have an open mindset about it, people would just get shunned and they would be like, you're either with us or you're against us, sort of deal. Like, we're not open to discuss other ideas, or this isn't a multi-level marketing system, it's not a pyramid scheme. Like, everything's a pyramid scheme when you look at it. Life is a pyramid scheme, all this BS. So it seems like yes. And teach that there is no happiness or peace outside of the group. I do feel like this is subliminally promoted because this is the easiest entrepreneurial journey on the planet, you know? You can't be happy unless you're living like the top dogs do. I mean, don't you want that lifestyle so much? Well, you can get it through Breakaway. Otherwise, what else are you gonna do? Go back to your stupid 9-to-5? So I do feel like there is some cult-like behavior taking place, but it could be much worse. Last, but the opposite of least, is money. The prospect of being able to earn 6 figures or get those monthly residual income checks for life is going to keep many in, both those who are already making a ton and those who are making nothing but believe that if they just keep trying hard that eventually they'll succeed. But how many are actually making money, and how good of a chance do you have to make much? So first, of course, you have a 99.6% chance of not making money in an MLM, but the exact percentage is going to fluctuate from company to company. Enagic doesn't put out an income disclosure statement, so we can't know how many are making what amounts of money. I also haven't been able to find how many people are actively trying to sell in Enagic. I've heard that there are over 1 million people who have bought machines, but I'm not sure how many of those are trying to make it into a business. I would assume somewhere maybe in the low 10,000s, but I don't know, it's just a random estimate. I went through and tallied up the amount of distributors who hit 6A and any rank above 6A in 1 month per quarter from Enagic's earliest online newsletter, July 2015, to the first quarter of 2020. The top line is for those who hit 6A. The average was 80 people per month worldwide. For all the ranks above 6A combined, the average was 35 per month. When the lines of best fit are put in, you can see that in the past 5 years, there's been virtually no growth in the amount of people hitting these ranks. When it comes to BAM, not everyone is affiliated with Enagic, so an industry insider in BAM Pro told me that As of August 11th, 2020, there were 3,966 BAM members, but only 1,533 that were actually affiliated with BAM, which is 39%. Based on numbers from Iris's September 2019 mastermind call, she said that 600 to 700 were in BAM Pro, but there were over 1,000 that weren't affiliated, and that comes out to 39% as well, so we can assume that that's a pretty consistent ratio. I got an email from BAM on June 17th where they listed how many people had been brought into the movement in the past week. So this isn't people who've made an Enagic sale, just people who've gotten someone to pay the $33 to sign up to BAM. Also, keep in mind that most of these people are promoting the business way more than the water. Every person that I've heard give stats for this has said that the majority of their sales have come from people wanting to start the business, so there's probably not that many people who are making many sales to people who just want the water and therefore wouldn't sign up to BAM. I'm also like 99% sure you can't recruit anyone to BAM unless you've affiliated with Enagic, so no one who's not part of BAM Pro would be recruiting anyone. In that 1 week in June, only 42 people were recruited into BAM. They also mentioned that one of the top dogs, Karen, brought in the most people with 5, so it could be assumed that there are other people who brought in like more than one person, meaning less than 42 people brought someone into the platform in the entire week. And that seems to be a number that's pretty consistent based on the times that I've looked at, like the Facebook stats and the amounts of new members that are shown on there in a week. So 42 people in a week is 168 in a month, but if only around 39% will affiliate with Enagic, that comes out to 66 people in a month that will likely turn out to be sales. Since the 1,533 in BAM Pro is from August 11th, 2 months ago on June 17th, we can estimate that there were 132 less BAM Pro members because we're estimating 66 new ones per month. So that's 1,401, and if 66 sales are made per month, we can estimate that only 5% are making at least one sale a month. It could be higher because some, of course, do sell to those not interested in the business, but it could be lower because some people are going to make multiple sales per month, or they could cancel each other out and it would be kind of still around that 5%. So after filming this video on September 2nd, BAM sent out an email with some slides that give a little bit more insight regarding statistics, and we'll go over the ones that are kind of relevant to this part of the video. They say they've sold over 5,200 Enagic products, 3,000 of those have been a K8 machine. That really doesn't tell us much since many people sign up with the Trifectas, purchasing 3 products, and then the Ukon turmeric is being auto-shipped 3 times a year, so we can't really know that much from those numbers. Also, this isn't relevant, but I want to point out how their stats on how many bottles of water people drink and therefore how many BAM has eliminated just demonstrates the lack of critical thinking that goes on, because it assumes that everyone either drinks bottled water or Kangen water. Everyone who's now drinking Kangen water was previously drinking bottled water. This community implies so frequently that there are no other options besides water from bottles or ionizers that I started to feel like I'm the only person who has drunk tap water my whole life. Anyways, they say there are 27 members who are 6A, which means they've made 101 sales. Remember, both direct and indirect count. All of them have made over $100,000 in a year, which is definitely not an income claim in any way, shape, or form. Remember, they work really closely with a lawyer who helps them follow all of the FTC's guidelines, except the ones they just don't want to. And there are 102 people who are 4A or 5A. Apparently 80% of people in Enagic who hit 4A eventually rank up to 6A, but I'm gonna need a citation for that because I've never seen one. But for looking at these statistics, let's stick with 1,533 Enagic affiliated BAM members, since these slides were likely made a little before the email was sent out. And so 27 of those are 6A, so that's 1.7%, which, hey, that's not too bad compared to some MLMs. Then adding in the 4 and 5A folks to the 6A ones, that's 129 total, or 8.4%, have made at least 21 sales, which, just going on amount of sales, over 90% of the members have made 20 or less sales. Kind of bad, but since you are making a lot of money per sale, it might sound like that's kind of good for the movement only being around for a year. But as this email says, there were 350 people who have been in BAM since day one, and some of those people would have come over from CEO with Aaliyah. So hypothetically, it's possible that almost all these people that have hit these ranks started their Enagic businesses prior to the beginning of Breakaway. Based on the amount of people affiliating each month compared to the total number of Enagic affiliated members that we just went over that led to the 5% making at least one sale, it is clear that there aren't a lot of people making sales to those who are joining Breakaway. So it is likely that there is a select group doing well while the vast majority are struggling. What you'll notice if you follow these people for half a year like I did is that pretty much all the higher ups that I know of had advantages that most people don't have. Tara was a photographer who had already started 2 businesses prior. Brianna worked for a social media marketing company. Becky and Macy were in another MLM, Juice Plus. Macy was at the top of that MLM, hosted multiple retreats, and Becky had built her first website over 4 years ago. Iris has said that she already began branding herself on social media for a while. Alyssa had already been branding herself and garnered an audience of several thousand, and Amy already had over 40,000 Instagram followers. Many of them were already friends with Aaliyah or another higher up. Alyssa and Sherry were roommates with Aaliyah before BAM. Larissa and Macy lived with Aaliyah before she even started with Enagic, I think. Amy was friends with Aaliyah before starting BAM. Clarice was one of the first people who signed on with Aaliyah in CEO. Nowadays, all the higher-ups seem to be friends with each other. Sherry has called Larissa, Tara, and Aaliyah a few of her best friends. Brianna is roommates with Anita and Reba. I could go on and on. All those people are in the in-group of BAM, probably the ones that sat at their own separate little table at the retreat that I talked about way earlier in this video. When I had access to the BAM platform, I could look up who everyone's direct upline was, except for a few people whose info just wasn't in there. So I looked up all the people that are part of that in-group, or were mods or admins for the Facebook group, or were listed as leaders on the website at that time. Out of the 33 higher-ups that I could find information for, Aaliyah had brought in 18 of them, so over half, and then 13 of the higher-ups have been brought in through other higher-ups. Only 2 have someone who is not high up that I know of as their direct upline. So the vast majority of the higher-ups came into the business through other higher-ups. Why is this? Well, probably because a lot of them knew each other beforehand. Also, many of them had more followers than the average person, so people are more likely to stumble across their accounts. And most people would probably rather be coached by someone like Larissa, who has said she's made $80,000 in a month before, has 18,000 followers, has hit 6A in 3 months, which is faster than any other band member I've ever seen, and is living that kind of travel digital nomad lifestyle that a lot of people want, rather than someone who has 700 followers and hit 2A in 9 months and is still working another job. People would rather be coached by Macy, who set 2 world records in her previous MLM, and despite admitting when she jumped over to Enagic that she was actually tens of thousands of dollars in debt in her previous MLM that she was pretending gave her financial freedom, she now talks nonstop about how much money she's supposedly making with Enagic, and that's gonna entice a lot of people. One of the higher-ups, Reba, said when she was 5A, meaning she had made 50 to 100 sales, that every single sale she made was a direct sale, meaning no one she had sold to made a single sale. And she's somebody who has literally said that she doesn't like to talk about the water, she just wants to talk about the business and the lifestyle. So I'd assume pretty much everyone she's selling to is trying to do the business, yet none of them are making sales. Most people are going to struggle to get started, but a lot of these higher ups were already living that dream lifestyle when they started, which made it easy for them to recruit people at the beginning. And while they'll make it seem like it's just a super easy thing that doesn't really take that much time, most of these people have put in way more work than most people want to or are able to. Like, here's some quotes from Aaliyah. The first one is regarding the pro group. They're too busy to do things, to even be posting on what they want to hear me talk about. I work a crap ton, to be honest. I work 7 days a week, 99% of the time. In the beginning, I felt overwhelmed by the DMs and the emails, and I was always checking devices. And if friends were going out hiking or going to the beach, it was not even an option that I could go because I had to sit at home and check these emails. This line of work that we do is a bit toxic. We're always on our phones, we're always on our laptops, we're indoors a lot, we're sitting a lot, we're working a lot. We spend 90% of our time online. Brianna has said that every waking hour that she wasn't at her old job was spent doing stuff related to Enagic and BAM, and experienced a burnout after 10 months of all in. And I'm pretty sure in that whole time she had only made it to 4A, so less than 50 sales in 10 months of being all in and experiencing a burnout after that. Then she moved, and at some point, I'm honestly not sure how long this was after she moved, but she said, "Pretty sure this is my first day since moving out to Hawaii. I haven't done work." Becky has said, "SOS, my inbox is never empty." Lacey said that she had to work round the clock when creating Free Life Movement. Aaliyah has said that Larissa dedicated her life to this business for the first few months. I've literally watched her do 12 coaching calls a day. Larissa has said, I, for months, was working round the clock. And I started this business back in January 2019, and I've put in more time, more effort, more dedication into this business, and worked more hours than any other job that I've ever worked. Zoe has said, I get overwhelmed when I wake up in the morning because I have so much crap to do. Just answered DMs for 3 hours. Deep breaths, deep breaths. I love my job, I love my job, I love my job. In June, she posted this. I've recently lost my desire to create, share, inspire, and teach. For some reason, I just can't be bothered to pursue anything. I think I've come to a bit of a burnout with this space, my brand, and navigating where I want to spend my energy in terms of social media. Now I realize this season of my life, the last 6 months, wasn't meant to be for creating, teaching, and busting my butt or building 3 different platforms at once. Burning out doesn't sound like having time freedom to me. Now, Breakaway has only been around for a year, which isn't that long, but so far, the members of BAM, or people who were in BAM but left for other platforms that have been mentioned in Enagic's newsletters that mention who's hit 6A and above, in order from earliest to most recent, are Aaliyah, Macy, Sherry, Macy's fiance, Ellie, Amy, Bryn, Clarice, Alyssa, Ellie's husband, Alyssa's mom, Iris, Molly, Zoe, and that's up to May 2020. Others who have said, or someone else has said that they hit 6A, but I haven't been able to find them, likely because they have business names I'm not aware of, are Larissa, Sharon, Sharon's husband, Iris's partner, and Tara. Of those people, Ellie, Macy, Macy's fiance, and Aaliyah are above 6A, and Sharon and her husband say they are too, and I assume Larissa probably is since she hit 6A in 3 months quite a while ago, but I really don't know. And besides the moms that a few girls put above them so they could make money off their sales without them having to do anything, which is really admirable, all of those people are in the in-group that I talked about. They had followers on social media, they had started previous businesses, knew someone, or were in a relationship with one of these higher-ups, all the things that I talked about. If you're with BAM, you're bringing people into this platform, this community, which will only ever attract a very small amount of people who are into the stuff promoted by BAM. Pretty much all the top dogs are white, attractive girls in their 20s, and I don't think that's just by pure coincidence. I think it's because of the types of people who are attracted to the vibe that Breakaway has. So if you aren't in that demographic, I think with this specific platform, you probably will have a harder time. But that being said, most of the Enagic top dogs you see in the newsletters are not that demographic. It's mainly average-looking, middle-aged Asian men and women. Even in countries where the majority population isn't Asian, like the US, many of the people hating 6A and above do have Asian names. So it's not like the only types of people who can succeed in Enagic are young, pretty white girls. But when it comes to BAM, that's the main demographic that's attracted to their type of content. And the prettier ones who post more beautiful pictures are going to do better because the New Age community really does value what's aesthetically pleasing. So overall, I really don't think that many people have that good of a chance of making money in this business. And if you do make a lot of money, it could be argued that you did so at the expense of others, and I think I've made it pretty clear why that is. Before we wrap up the video, let's look at some of the controversies surrounding the Breakaway Movement, which has led certain people to leave. The main one that I've seen is their link system. Basically, when you're talking to one of these members, they'll send you a link to the web class, or they'll just have the link in their bio, but you go there, you put in your name and your email, and you get access to it. You're now linked to this person for 3 months is what I've been told. So when you sign up for Breakaway, in the BAM system, that person is regarded as your affiliate, and you basically have to purchase a machine through that person if you end up doing that, so then you can be coached by them. It would of course be totally possible for you to use any random person's ID, but if you bought one through somebody else in Breakaway, I'm not sure how it would work, but basically it's a violation of Breakaway's policies, so you're not supposed to do that. But that's caused a lot of problems for people because no one knows when you're putting in your information after getting sent these links that you're now assigned to that person. And so many people are ending up with people as their direct upline that they're not happy with and that they don't want to be coached with, but they literally have no other option than to wait 3 months, although they probably don't know that either because why would they? I was told by somebody who used to be in BAM that they were talking to a lot of other people that were considering leaving because of that reason, but I guess the founders don't really care, probably because it benefits them and the other people with the most followers. Earlier this year, one of the top dogs, Tara, who was friends with Aaliyah and even in some of the training videos, made a series of Instagram stories about why she was leaving and creating her own platform, Know Your Why. She basically stated that she was getting ads for the BAM web class on her Facebook page that were linked to the owners' accounts. So she felt that they were using the membership money to buy ads that would then make anyone who put their info in tied to them, the owners, for good. Tara said in a follow-up story that they responded to her saying that they were just doing retargeting ads to people who'd already put their information in to anyone's affiliate links to try to get people to pay for the membership, which makes sense. But she also said that the email linked to her Facebook account is one that is from a long time ago and she never used in any way related to BAM. So who knows what's going on there. Then lastly, a girl who left posted these stories in July.
I was so infatuated by the dream lifestyle that was portrayed to me when I was introduced to the Breakaway Movement, frolicking, drinking coconuts, climbing palm trees. You know, it all looks so good and I wanted that. And to be fucking honest, I didn't give a shit about the Kangen machine. I was like, that lifestyle, I want that. I made one sale and I was wondering, like, why is this so hard? Why isn't this working for me? You know, I don't resonate with this strategy of selling a dream instead of selling a product. If you're selling a product, sell the fucking product. Don't come at me with these ads of live your dream life, create financial abundance, join the business. Like, it's so obnoxious to me at this point. It just seems really inauthentic and lacking so much creativity, and I don't resonate with it anymore. Like I said, I'm not going to sell a dream, and I honestly felt really ashamed for a while that I was even a part of that I bought into that.
And you know, I think she's the only one in this entire story that deserves a round of applause. She had contacted me a couple months ago and she was by far the most ethical and logical and real with me and willing to admit that it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows and like everyone can become a millionaire so easily. So I thought we'd end on a good note there. There are many good-hearted people who are not selfish and greedy in this community. I would say the vast majority aren't, but in my opinion, the top dogs got to where they are through means that aren't completely just. So to conclude, the Breakaway Movement is not about selling a product. It's about selling the dream of being a rich, full-time traveler, entrepreneur, Instagram influencer, something that most people will never attain. They lure you in with their lavish lifestyles and convince you that you can achieve the same. By breaking company policy and federal guidelines, they use their incomes to entice you and appeal to your emotions. Impulsivity is encouraged because they don't care about you making informed, educated decisions. They care about increasing their chance of making money off you, and the less research you do, the more likely you are to join. Misinformation is rampant because they aren't interested in doing proper research themselves and instead prefer to just regurgitate information from within the community. They specifically target people who are in the most vulnerable places and convince them to go into debt or commit fraud to join the business.
Anyone can be scammed. It has less to do with IQ and more to do with where you are in life. Whether you're struggling with money problems, you hate your job, if you're just feeling a bit down, you are more vulnerable and more likely to be sold on a shortcut.
Contradictory things like, this is the easiest journey of entrepreneurship on the planet. It's 90% automated and you have to work really, really hard if you want to see results, are things they'll oscillate between saying and are major red flags. Anyone who struggles in the business just has a lack mindset, and because of the sunk cost fallacy and them telling everyone that the only way you can fail is if you quit, many people will stay in a business that they're just not ever going to get anywhere with. Their trainings really aren't that revolutionary, and what they're actually doing to make money is really easy to spot and replicate. You know, you don't have to join a platform and pay someone to tell you. Just post bikini pics on the beach and pair it with pseudo-spiritual captions and follow some of the other selling tactics that I talked about in this video, and you're pretty much good to go. Even if you would never join BAM, just know that if your kid or your cousin or your friend or whoever does, it's probably going to change them as a person, and not necessarily in a good way. Their beliefs will likely begin to gradually become more and more similar to those that are common within the group. They'll start talking differently, they'll start acting differently, and they probably won't want to hear anything that would challenge their perception of the group.
Most people in the middle of a confidence scheme will fight tooth and nail to legitimize it. They've invested their personalities in this, let alone their money, so even hearing that it might not be true is enough to send them reeling.
Of course, not every effect will be negative, but the way this group works makes it so that they have influence over so many different aspects of a person's life, because they go beyond just talking about business. They talk about mindset and personal development, conspiracy theories, a lot of them promote psychedelic use, books you should read, the list goes on and on. At the end of the day, when there's a lot of money in something, you should always be skeptical of the authenticity of those talking about it. Just because people seem sweet and loving on the surface doesn't mean they're not doing that for their own personal gain. I find it really sad and disgusting what the higher-ups of the Breakaway movement are doing, and I feel bad for those at the bottom who were suckered into this by them. That's why I made this deep dive, to help educate people on what's going on behind the scenes, so you can make a more informed decision on whether or not this is a group you want to join, because they sure as hell aren't going to do that themselves.